the hearing now. We are now moving on to a panel, Law Enforcement Coordination, Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, Baltimore Police Department, and the State's Attorney for Baltimore City. I've been joined to my right by Council President Bernard C. Jack Young, Councilman Ed Reisinger, Councilman Robert Stokes, Council Vice President Sharon Middleton, and to my left, Councilwoman Shannon Sneed. We will proceed with the presentation. We ask due to time that we keep the presentations for the agencies for 5 minutes apiece. Chief of Staff Morton, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, Councilman Scott, Council President.
Ma'am, can you pull the mic up? Pull the mic up, son.
And members of the council. This is my first time doing this. Kim Morton, the Chief of Staff of the Mayor's Office, and I'm standing in today to present on the MOCJ budget and report. I would like my colleagues to introduce themselves, those individuals who may be speaking up as well.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jim Gillis.
Mr. Gillis, please use the microphone, sir. These are being streamed.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jim Gillis. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Baltimore Police Department.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, I'm Michael Schatzo. I'm the Chief Deputy State's Attorney. Also here from the State's Attorney's Office is our Chief Administrative Officer, Camille Blake Fall, and our Director of Legislative Affairs and Policy, Lisa Smith.
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the committee. My name's Captain Steve Homan. I am the commander of the Baltimore Police Department's Special Investigations Section.
Thank you. Please come to the podium, Mr. Henry.
Good afternoon. I'm Leon Henry. I'm Director of Ceasefire. I have my colleague, Mr. Robert Brazell, who is our service coordinator.
Edmund Good with Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice and Baltimore Police Department.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Ganesha Martin. I am the Chief of the Department of Justice, Compliance, Accountability, and External Affairs for the Police Department. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Samuel Hood, Baltimore Police Department. I'm the Commanding Officer of City Watch.
Good morning. I'm Carlise Moss Teams. I'm the Program Manager for the Diversion Program.
Thank you. Madam Chief of Staff, will you be presenting the slideshow?
I will.
No, I'm sorry. Mayor's Chief of Staff. Yeah.
I've only been here for a week, so it's okay. Can I? We don't have a slideshow. I'm going to be talking about the restructuring of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So traditionally, the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice has been the coordinating body for federal, state, and local funds. In the recent past, it also assumed the responsibility of doing some programmatic work. The reason that we've had to completely restructure, as you all know, was because of the consent decree. So historically, while the office had a number of positions, of which 9 were grant funded, it currently will only have 3 grant funded positions. And the rest will be general funds. The new structure for the office will have a executive director. This position is currently vacant, and we are interviewing individuals from the Justice Department. We're looking for individuals who have experience with consent decree work. There are also 2 subsections to the new organization. The DOJ compliance section with a consent decree individual underneath, and also an analyst. All of this new structure is in place because we have the consent decree, so it's pretty unprecedented for the city. The other components of the MOCJ office will consist of the more traditional things that you're used to seeing. A public safety program manager who will oversee things like the HIDA, the juvenile diversion programs. These are all the grant funded. We've also have 2 new reentry positions. One which was transferred over from the Mayor's Office of Human Services, and a new position. Those are general fund positions. And they will focus on a more detailed and structured process for introducing our, as the mayor calls them, our re-inviting our citizens back into the community. The human trafficking and SART and the visitation center positions, which are also grant funded, also fall under this area. There is a juvenile diversion program that is currently grant funded. If the grant for that position is not awarded, then the mayor's office is prepared to defund something in order to fund that position. This is something that was also required in the consent decree.
That's all, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sir.
So next would be, click the next. Victim services. Another one. One more click. Victim services. Anyone from the state's attorney's office want to address that? Is that your service?
I believe that's also the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice.
The Mayor's
Service.
Office of Criminal Justice. Great. Click. Oh, actually, Lieutenant Hood, you're the next one. City Watch, sir. Come on up. Click again. One more.
Good morning again.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Since conception for City Watch in 2005, we've had a consistent decrease in crime across the city. We've now started, and as you're well aware, in 2005 with 50 cameras. We're over 750 cameras today. We're across all public safety services, meaning that not only for crime reduction, we provide safety and services from all of your disciplines for transportation, for risk management, for fire, as well as health. We do this 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And in the last year, just for, so you can see the statistics, 30 retired officers had 531 arrests. We had 38 for handguns last year before a violent act occurred. You just saw last weekend on the news that we've got another gun out of the custom house right on the block before a violent incident occurred. These are so there's not retaliatory crimes that occurred. We're proactively doing that, as well as for public safety and services, for health, medic calls. You're seeing where we're calling when someone's incapacitated and can't call for help, which is that critical time of safety and services for our citizens of Baltimore. I just wanted to know.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. With that, you can have a seat, Lieutenant. We will move to questions. I will start. Madam Chief of Staff, you say that there's going to be, doing the reorganization of, and we're being joined right now by Councilman Chris Burnett from the 8th District, and the reorganization of MOCJ, there's going to be a specific focus on the consent decree and the DOJ compliance section. I'm a little concerned about overlap from Chief Martin's position inside the police department and they having a DOJ compliance section. Can you talk about why we need both?
Yes, the consent decree has very specific requirements for the police department, but there were also, there were also very specific requirements that the city is responsible for. You don't want, obviously the implementation and monitoring compliance for the consent decree should not be handled exclusively by the department, which is why we needed to create this separate section. There will be the DOJ compliance chief will be the point of contact with the monitor and will be the person responsible for overseeing those 5 or 6 specific areas that the city is required to respond to from the consent decree.
Thank you. As you know, Madam Chief, I personally believe that MOCJ should be the coordination of public safety. As you know, I think that the only way that the police department can be properly overseen is that if someone inside the mayor's office, in particular the MOCJ, is overseeing the police commissioner. With that being said, that service has a very large cut this year. Can you talk about how the new structure is going to deal with that, especially in light of the violence wave of violence that we're seeing in the city, how we're going to deal with the coordination of public safety strategy. Will the new executive director be focused on that coordination of public safety strategy and holding the police department accountable more so than focus on the consent decree? And also how we're going to bring back some of the other programs that we used to have in MOCJ that we no longer have, and making sure that we're looking not just at grant funding, but looking at putting stuff in actual services so that we can continue to see them. We know that at least for the next 4 years, grant funding from DC is probably going out the window.
So the way that with some of what you see as a budget cut were the redistribution of dollars to put them in their proper areas. You will also see that, like, again, like with the reentry, those dollars were pulled from a different agency and placed into this agency. The way that it will be addressed with the streamlined function is to get more for less. You have a director of MOCJ, which will still play a vital role and be the partner with the mayor's office in working with both police, fire, emergency management. So that is a higher role than just the DOJ compliance officer. They are really focused with the potentially extraordinary amount of money we're going to end up spending over the consent decree. The director of MOCJ will have a larger role in working with the public safety agencies. To the extent that you asked about those programs that used to belong to MOCJ, this administration is attempting to be a little more efficient with how those are deployed. You send the programs to the subject matter experts, but you centralize the monitoring of those programs, which is why this footprint for MOCJ will be smaller. Programs shouldn't run out of the mayor's office. They should be monitored by the mayor's office. So that's what you're going to see under the public safety manager portion of the new structure for MOCJ.
I have more questions, but I'll ask them later, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The City Watch cameras, can we get locations of where those cameras are? Because with the rise in the murder rate in the city of Baltimore, if we have City Watch cameras up, we should be capturing some of these shootings and some of these killings.
Council President, they're on Open Baltimore on that link now. I will also update that link because we have been we're victims of our own success and progress. We've been moving into several new communities, and I'll make sure you have an updated KMZ file on that Open Baltimore link.
Okay. Have the City Watch cameras, have they been able to capture any of the murders and the shootings that's going on in the city?
Yes, and I was just speaking with council members earlier. We just had a shooting the other day on Bentlow and North Avenue, and we caught the whole incident on video. This is exactly as Chief of Staff was saying from Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice for the Police Commissioner, accountability, using technology to be in the right spot at the right time, using with our staffing shortages and challenges, we have this technology, so we utilize that to provide a better safety and services for the citizens.
Okay, because I see redundancy. We get ready to put up the speed cameras and the I forgot the other camera, but we already put them up. Have the police department been in communication with transportation and how you all can utilize those cameras to catch crime in those areas where they have those red light cameras and speed cameras, where they're going to be located?
I have spoken to the coordinator. I'm sorry?
Yeah, because it seems to me that, you know, one agency don't talk to the next one, and we have cameras here that's only catching people that's speeding through or people that's running a stop sign or red light. We should be able to utilize those cameras to capture everything.
Thank you. All I could say, Council President, because that is a challenge that we've all been addressing for over the last decade. I've been here for 2 decades myself. They have been in silos. That's part of what City Watch has been for the common operating picture, and we are a Homeland Security best practice for that. I have been speaking to the Chief of Staff. We have coordinated with DOT. We know where they're putting in their red light cameras and the speed light cameras to augment them with license plate readers and gunshot detection, as well as where we have public safety cameras on baselines. you know that we have a City Watch public-private partnership database where it's the private owner, and they go to that link, and they actually, from Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice or Mayor's Office of Information Technology, link where they put their own camera. And that's another service, because that could be a VCR. They could never connect to ours, but they know that detective or who's working that incident at their residence or their business, and in real time, they know, don't tape over it so we can use it. So we are scalability. We have that common operating picture, and we are coordinate that. But I'm glad to thank you so much again.
Yeah, because
to
I've been
see-
asking them why
identify
we
that
can't-
because it has been an issue in
Right.
the past
Right.
because everybody stayed in their own silos.
Okay, that's good to hear. All right. I want to talk about overtime now.
This is not the full police.
Not the form?
No,
Okay,
no, sir.
I'm waiting for that form.
It's 5 p.m., Mr. President. 5 p.m., Mr. President. Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this question is related to Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. I'm sorry I didn't get your name, ma'am. My apologies for being late.
Kim Morton, like the salt.
Gotcha. Good to meet you, Ms. Morton. Like the salt. So I had a question about the coordination work being done, sexual assault response team, as well as I see that there's funding for human trafficking. Can you talk a little bit about some of the work that the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice is doing, and especially around the need to coordinate with the State's Attorney's Office, BPD, Baltimore City Schools around this issue of trafficking?
Right. So both of those positions are currently vacant. All of the agencies will combine to interview to fill for those positions. In the past, particularly in one of those positions, the individual was not necessarily the best team player. So as we advertise to staff out this new structure, the panel will consist of members from all of the partnering agencies to select a candidate that can work together with everyone.
And do you have a goal for when those positions will be filled?
Well, we've just completed the original chart now with the consent decree, and we anticipate that they'll be filled between now and the middle of July. To the extent that those grant funds have already started, we have already coordinated with the grantors who understand that the entire office is being restructured.
Okay. And that person or two people would be supervised by?
By the director of MOCJ. Mhm.
Okay. And I've already asked that my colleague, Councilman Scott, this came up at a previous hearing with the State's Attorney's Office, that we maybe six to 8 months into the program getting off the ground, that we call a hearing to just learn more about what's being done as it relates to this particular program.
I'm sorry, I didn't. You said you wanted to call a hearing.
So yeah, I've asked.
Okay.
I've asked that once you do fill the positions and the work is underway, that we just inform the council on the work that's being done.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you're aware, the Education and Youth Committee had a hearing earlier in the year around this issue, and so it's something that I want to make sure that we continue to put a focus and emphasis on, especially just because it's a huge issue along the 95 corridor, and it's becoming increasingly problematic in Baltimore City.
I can coordinate with Karan to make sure that you're provided with a written update as well.
That would be perfect.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Snead.
So I've sat in before. Oh, thank you. And I've sat in before on when you guys have called in. I can't remember the name of it, where some of the guys have been in trouble before, women have been in trouble before. You sit them down and really say, this is the last chance. Can you talk about how that has gone, and if it has really helped to, bring these guys in to really talk about this is your last chance, let's get it together? Have you shown numbers to go down with that?
That is the ceasefire program that you referred to with the call-ins? Yes. Okay. Mr. Henry will come up and discuss that. Now, that program actually, I believe that would have been under the Victim Services title, but that program is something that is being changed. The police department is no longer interested in pursuing that line. Is that correct?
Yes,
If you want to go on. Okay.
So, again, what you're talking about is the call-in, and just a quick and dirty is that we bring in members of different violent groups around the city. We try to bring in about 2 from each group who are most active in that particular region. So we have about 30 young men mostly young men that we bring in. And it's a coordinated effort between the State's Attorney's Office, BPD, the federal authorities. And again, the idea is to tell you that we know who you are, we're watching you. If there's any more violence from your group, the enforcement is going to be sure and swift. The other part of that is where myself and my colleague Robert Bazell comes in, is that there's a targeted offer of help. So we go in and we say, if you don't want to spend, we know that you're either going to die or go to jail. And if those are not the options you want, we're here to help you with anything you need. Most of these guys are looking for employment. It's a myth that guys who sell drugs have money coming out of their pocket. Most of them are very low-income guys who are desperate to survive. And given an opportunity to do something else, many of them take advantage of that. Again, what we have seen when we were doing this program the last fiscal year is many of the most violent folks that we targeted were less likely to either shoot someone or get killed. So the message was that not necessarily that they changed their business, but they started to change their business model. So in that sense, the fact that they're not in prison and still alive is what we consider success.
So can you just talk about, out of those 30 guys or so that are in that group, how many we have helped with employment, how long they've stayed in employment? Do we track and keep up with them throughout 5 to 10 years? How does it work?
Well, we haven't been around to track them for years. Understand that the number one goal is to make sure they're alive. So although we do track people that we get employed, it's a violence reduction program. So my main focus is, are you not acting violently? And I even tell them during the call-in, I know the police don't like this, but I'm not concerned if you're going out back. You have to do what you have to do to make money, but we want you to put the guns down. So we do have a number of, Robert's probably working with about 30 guys right now, and understand these guys are in and out. So we may be working with a guy for 2 weeks and not see him for a month. Then he may come back. So we do a lot of work with the Reentry Center at Northwest Career Center. So Robert is the point of contact. He's the one that sort of brings them there and follows them, and then we do the handoff.
To be more specific, Councilwoman Sneed, under the restructure, you will be able to get the very specific data that you're requesting that I don't think you might be receiving right now. This is another one of the challenges that we had in why we're restructuring this, so that you can, when you say out of the 30, how many have reoffended, they can give you an actual number and can give you maybe a little more detailed information. To the extent that if that hasn't been answered now, they can certainly go back, pull their data, and give you a report on what they have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Chief, just a couple of questions that I have. So, under this restructure, where would programs like the diversion program, ceasefire, where would they all go? And
They would be under the public safety program manager section.
okay,
And that's like I said,
it's still
the
in
more traditional-
MOCJ.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. And my next question is really about the coordination. So, right now, who is coordinating the public safety efforts since there is no director in MOCJ? Is that coordination simply happening basically at the behest of the police commissioner? Because when we're at 146 homicides, I think that this should be like a top focus for all of us to do what we can, even from the council level, to help you guys however we can to get these positions filled as quickly as possible. We know that we haven't had this office for quite some time, and we know based off the data in the years where we had a high functioning MOCJ from 2007 to 2014, where we saw violent crime go down each and every year in the city of Baltimore, that is very effective. Every day that goes by is a day that we're going to get more and more behind. And it takes a lot of effort to come from what we're dealing with on the streets of Baltimore every day. This, in my opinion, should be the top priority. Can you talk about what the timeline is, what we're looking at, and how quickly are we going to get these people here and on the street? Because simply people are dying every day.
Right. So what we have, where we are at this point is the director of MOCJ, the prime candidate that we have at this point is a gentleman coming from the Justice Department, from the Obama administration. So we have narrowed down some of these positions. In the spirit of partnership, which is not always the case, we would like to vet them with the other agencies. We narrowed them down. So the state's attorney and the police commissioner will have an opportunity to review the last 2 resumes for each of those groups. So we're looking probably within the next 30 days to have those 2 positions filled. The council president will get to look at them too.
He's not here, but if I
Yeah, I
know
know, but
he was here, he would ask me to ask that question.
Yeah. Over the years, the focus of MOCJ has shifted to such a degree that it was perhaps not as effective. And that's been the other challenge with restructuring it, because we had to allow positions to sort of phase out. You don't want to just come in and fire folks. So we were letting grants and other positions phase out. Now that all of that has occurred, we can move forward. To the extent that we're dealing with the consent decree and those issues, I believe the announcements will go out for that community oversight task force the first week of July. And that's the partnership with Ms. Martin. So they're working together.
And my last question, we opened them last week, but there is a cut in the budget for the Youth Connection Centers. What's going to be the funding for them if the mayor we announced last week that they're going to be open, but in the budget for this year, it zeroes them out?
That's one of the There were certain, as I stated earlier, there were some positions where the money was not necessarily cut, it was transferred to appropriately reflect where it is. Is that, Matt, you want to get up, baby? Oh, I mean, Mr. Rappaport.
Councilman.
State your name for the record, sir.
Excuse me?
State your name for the record.
Oh, my name is Matt Rappaport. I'm an analyst at BBMR. MOCJ is one of my agencies that I manage. We did a restructuring very thoroughly of their grants funds, which were allocated centrally, and we split them between respective grants, which were supposed to fall under services in the appropriate areas.
So that doesn't answer my question. Where's the money?
No. The money's not cut. No.
So where is the money for the Youth Connection Centers? What agency was it transferred to? Because we know it wasn't transferred to Rec and Parks because the recreation centers have a cut.
Let me correct myself. So the YCCs, the history goes back. Just to be clear, the distinction between the YCCs and the YSBs, the connection centers and the service bureaus. The YCCs were put into the budget in fiscal 15. They were a pilot. They were built into the tune of about $400,000. For whatever reason, they weren't utilized. I know that police were not.
I can tell you why. We had a bad police commissioner that didn't know how to do his job.
Yeah, folks were not dropping, at the curfew centers, they were not dropping youth off. And so that budget was not utilized. I was not here 15 going into 16. So at some point the money was cut or reappropriated. And this year in the budget was about $70,000 for just professional services. It was 2 part-timers. Going into next fiscal year, that budget was phased out. But I do know that the mayor's office has plans to reinstate that program in the centers.
Again, the question still has been asked. Where is the money? I feel like I'm Jerry Maguire. Where's the money?
Well, the money is for this fiscal year. It's in MOCJ. Do you want to know the service or
no? Yes, I want to know exactly.
Councilman, the service will be funded from fiscal 17 funds for next summer. We'll be looking at external funding sources.
So let's, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Klein, can we have in writing exactly where the funds for the Youth Connection Centers are coming from?
Yes, we'll provide that in writing.
And also, the chair would like me to ask how we're going to fund something in the 18 with 17 funds.
Well, we will encumber the funds for 17 that are needed for the summer.
Excuse me? What'd you just say?
I said we will encumber the funds needed. So these are
how much funds are
contract
available?
positions.
How much funds are available from fiscal 17?
So I'll provide that in writing to the committee.
Not acceptable. How much funds are available from fiscal 17, Mr. Klein?
I will provide that in writing to the committee.
When can you get that answer to the committee?
We'll get it early next week.
Early next week's unacceptable. How much funds from fiscal 17 is available for fiscal 18? That is an unacceptable answer.
I'll provide that on Monday.
Monday's not good enough. Find the answer today.
Thank you. And lastly, on while we're talking about the YCCs, can we talk about the staffing for them and that we're going to make sure that we're hiring or rehiring some of the youth connectors that were actually there to recognize the signs of trauma for the young people that came in. There were so many young people that actually did come into the centers despite Commissioner Batt's failures. Can we talk about how we're going to rehire these people who are recognized or trained to recognize these things so they can make the right referrals to the right agencies and to the right programs?
Yes, I'm sorry to respond by telling you I wasn't actually, I started this Monday, so I wasn't actually involved in that, but I will give you today the answer to your question in writing.
Thank you, ma'am.
What that process was.
Thank you.
Kim, I just wanted to say congratulations on the new position. It's always been a pleasure to work with you, and we're looking forward to working with you in this new role. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Stokes.
I just have two questions for the Mayor's Office on Criminal Justice and Operation Ceasefire. I see a lot of groups you work with, the State's Attorney's Office, the Police Department. Are you working closely with the Juvenile Justice also?
The Department of Juvenile Justice, I believe that Carla Moss Thompson, who handles our diversion with juvenile justice, works very closely with the Department of Juvenile Justice. As a matter of fact, also some of the requirements from the consent decree require us to look at, us being the city, to look at diversion programs and community alternative to incarceration programs. So while there has been some work in the past, there's going to be even more work as we move forward in the future with the Department of Juvenile Justice.
And my second question is to your office and Operation Ceasefire. A lot of community people I speak with, they don't really know how the Mayor's Office and Criminal Justice work, and they don't know a lot about Operation Ceasefire. So I would like, if I can, have you come to some of the meetings to understand how that works, because a lot of people don't really know about Operation Ceasefire. So I would like some way that we can work through my 12th district so they understand how each one work and they'll be more familiar with it, because they're not.
We can, while they are, the police department is currently considering not using that model again. I can describe it to you, and I would be more than happy to send someone out to discuss it. The significant thing about ceasefire, when you do a call-in, is that defendants, those individuals who are engaged in criminal activity, often rely on the fact of anonymity because the system is overwhelmed. So you can walk around, walk past anybody, and they're not really paying attention. The thing that makes ceasefire significant is it's a message to usually a group or an individual. It says, I can't get everybody, but I can get you. And that makes a big difference for those individuals in that program because they're no longer anonymous. I can walk up and look you in the face and say, I can't watch everybody in the world, but I can watch you. And that makes a big difference. The program structure may change under the new administration and the direction of the police commissioner, but that is traditionally how it worked. And then to offer alternatives of either the next time you do something, because I know who you are, you're going to jail, or you can choose to take some other course of action that would better yourself in the community.
Yeah, but you preaching to the choir. Okay. Already know. No, the reason why I say that is because of Operation Ceasefire. I think it does well, but what are their successes in terms of those individuals that you target? And if you come to the community, I know that's the next question, how it operates and what are your success rate in terms of that program?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Operation Ceasefire, I know you target certain individuals, criminals. What is your success rate in helping those criminals to, I guess, curb what they do in terms of criminal work?
What Mr. Henry can provide for you, because Councilwoman Snead asked the same questions, and he is going to provide for her a written response of the success rate with that, because we
Okay.
didn't have it here. So he can provide it to you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Scott?
Just Madam Chief, just a follow up on ceasefire really quickly. Earlier, you said that the police department was interested in looking at different avenues. Are you saying that they're no longer interested in the program in its entirety?
I'm not sure. When I was briefed earlier this week, there was discussion about that. So I'm putting the council on notice that, to my knowledge at this point, there are questions about whether or not it will continue to exist in its current fashion. But at this point, that's all the information I have. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chief. If, as soon as possible, you could provide that. But also, I'd just like to go on record as saying that I don't think the police department should house ceasefire to begin with. I think that it should lie in the health department along with Safe Streets and other organizations, and that we should be, or not we, the mayor should be dictating to the police department and the police commissioner whether we continue the program or not. We know the program works. We know that this would be, if the decision to walk away from the program again, this will be the second time, and Baltimore will be the only city that ceasefire does not work in. So that means we have to then look at us and not look at the program. It only works if there's collaboration and true partnership, and in my opinion, the only way that they can truly work is if it's something that's independent of the police department. Maybe we should give it to health or another agency that can look at it with a different lens.
The idea that it will not be utilized is a resource decision from the police department. As you're aware, I was a part of that first round with ceasefire. So the issue is the redeployment of the officers who were dedicated to the program. And that's just a resource issue that the commissioner controls.
Thank you.
We have Councilman Bill Henry from the 4th District. Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And also congratulations on your new position, and to everyone else, thank you for the work you continue to do to help our youth in this city. And first I want to say, you know, sitting here listening to all of the presentations, I just see an awful lot of repetition and overlapping of certain programs that really can, in a sense, somehow be combined in one. And first, to say that, is there some kind of relationship with, we on the council, of course, are very strong advocates of the Safe Streets program. Mm-hmm. And is there any connection or communication or a constant, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, communication with that group? And also, we know that group they're former, you know, they're ex-offenders, they know the communities, they're working hard, and they're in the trenches, and that's part of the reason why they are successful. And again, I reference this because of my close involvement with the Park Heights Safe Streets program, and also knowing that they're only in half of that community, and that's the half of the community that we don't have as severe as violence as the other half, and hoping to get more funding to extend, you know, the whole community. And then, and also to let you know, I have been posing this question again for all of us, because we are really focusing on career skill sets for people that need jobs in this city, because part of that problem, we have that group of young people that do not have skills, they graduate, do not have a job, and they go in the streets, they need money. You know, and all this works hand to hand with the repetition of all these programs. So, you know, I'm just kind of making these comments because I think we need to know as a council, how do we move forward from here? I pose this question. I'm an advocate of apprenticeship. I pose this question to the school system and just about every agency. There's so many shortages within all these other agencies that Again, we had a government-strong apprenticeship system just about in every agency. It was connected with the school system. It just worked hand in hand. So I'm, again, putting that charge out there. We have unions that also partner, and they have money to help with that career set. So we need communication. We need someone focused on helping with careers. We have in place Ban the Box that took that question off. I mean, there's bits and pieces. We need somebody to pull all this together.
I got up, but not only because I couldn't see you, but because, I mean, what you're talking about is something that's very exciting to me. You are absolutely right. We have, one of the principal challenges that we have in the city right now are the silo operations of agencies and the need for them to coordinate better. With the new structure, that's one of the chief functions with this, the new director of MOCJ. Crime isn't, and I don't remember which council, there was a councilman saying in the hearing just before this one, crime isn't just about the police addressing something. It's economic, it's social, it's all of these other things. So I got excited as you started. You're drawing the picture that we're trying to create with this new structure. All of those agencies need to communicate. You can cross-pollinate, and it's more efficient, and it saves money. So working more collaboratively with other city agencies, and more importantly, just having city agencies talking to each other. We are going to get where you're going. And I know you're going to call me out on it in about 6 months and ask me what we've done, but I'm going to have a smile on your face because that is exactly what we're trying to do here. We've reduced the size of the agency and gave it a much more defined focus as it moves forward.
Okay.
But I just loved what you were saying.
Thank you. Do any of these, are you connected somehow with Safe Streets, or do you support Safe Streets? Do you know?
We do. Leon's going to come and talk about some of the connection because I've just recently stepped back into this world. I can't answer, but Leon, come on, make me proud. Yes.
So we do coordinate efforts with Safe Streets. I don't know if I can go into detail about everything we do because they don't work hand in hand with law enforcement. But if there are incidences where we think Safe Streets, we need them to sort of flood an area, I have a contact person I will contact, and we have words we use, and they know that they need to go to that area. If they think something is going to happen violent that's out of their control, I will be contacted, and I will connect with the appropriate BPD resources. So we do have a way of communicating with each other where they are able to keep their program integrity intact, but also keep communities safe.
And they're also very low-paid employees in those programs, and I see them also, you know, if they do a good job, they have a potential of moving into some other government program or skill set career, and then you can keep filling spots, and it can be another wraparound service.
Good afternoon. Well, I'll see you tonight as well. So just to make sure that the record is accurate, the mayor and the police commissioner and all of the other agency heads have come together on a new initiative, which we've talked to before the council about, is the transformation zone concept, right? And so the major thing there is to break down those silos and have all of the agency heads, health, Mayor's Office of Employment Development, education, come together and say we understand that public safety is not just a police issue, but how do we all come together and use our assets, and then also leverage the assets in the community to come together to bring down crime. And the last thing I'll say on that is we have specially trained what we're calling neighborhood coordinating officers to be kind of problem solvers, bring folks together in order to reduce crime. So one of the stories I'll leave you with is there was a store where we were having a lot of violent crime happening, but it was because people were gathering because they were selling loose cigarettes and things like that out of the store. And so they worked with, I'm not going to know which office it is, but out of the state. and to close down that store so that they couldn't sell the loose cigarettes, and then that dispersed and we had, some dissipation. So there's some small wins that we're having, but there's weekly meetings and where we're talking about how to coordinate those different efforts to bring down violent crime.
Thank you. We just got to keep it at an emergency. This is kind of an emergency situation level, and I know that you have this transformational zone thing I guess, started or in place.
Yeah, it's been happening for about 2 months.
Okay.
Yes. So we're picking up a speed, and please believe me, it is an emergency, which is why we are taking this course to say, everybody, all hands on deck, bring what you have. We have got to do something about what's going on.
Appreciate the information. Thank you.
Councilman Barnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I should have probably asked this question at the previous hearing, but are you able to provide the committee, and this would just be a request, I think we're on 75, site-specific outcomes for Safe Streets, as in each location, what the outcomes were, the number of interventions. I know the health department tracks that, so
Yeah,
if there's
but
something that you can't provide,
I can convey
make
that.
sure we have it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you.
And you said site-specific
So
results.
yeah, for each location, the number of interventions and outcomes, that just kind of that data, so we can have. I think it's really important in the conversation about why this initiative is important, is to really show that it is data driven, and we do know the outcomes, and we've been able to measure the impact. I think the problem in the conversation has been there's a lot of anecdotal assessments of the program, and I think we really just need to focus on actual outcomes. So it would be helpful if you could provide us with that. Thank you.
And I just have one question. And explain to me, tell me if this falls under Service 618. I have a neighborhood in District 13, and I'm just wondering for communities that are little neighborhoods that are just like this, they don't have a lot of crime in the community, but what's around them does have a lot of crime, like McElderry Park and Broadway East. And so I'm wondering if they would fall under crime prevention, because now it seems like with the transformational zones, crime is pushing into this one area. So for areas around Baltimore City that typically don't have a lot of crime but are surrounded by, would they fall into that 618 service?
Ganesha, I'm gonna need you to, because I didn't know anything about transformation zones. However, I understand what you're talking about, the compression and the push out. It's like crime's like a balloon. The minute you squeeze in one area, it spreads somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know that we've seen any movement of crime based upon what the enforcement we're doing to another area. Is there something specific maybe that you're speaking about?
So the care community has been questioning me about what are we doing for this neighborhood now that they're seeing an uptick in crime in the area. So I'm wondering, it's probably neighborhoods all around the city that are like that, just don't have a lot of crime, but because of the movement of, maybe what's going on is why the crime is starting to tick up in these particular areas that have been quiet.
So I'll say this, and then I think probably that's a question that you should also bring up tonight when we have our operations folks here to answer that question. But what I will tell you is the transformation zone is a pilot of sorts. So we are trying to break down those silos and figure out how we can all work together to bring down crime. But it's something that should eventually be deployed throughout the city. But I don't think that because we've had specific interventions in a certain area, I don't think we've seen any evidence that it has pushed it out to some other place. But I think those neighborhood coordinating officers, and like I said, that's one concept that we got from New York, what they were able to see when they had it fully deployed and had everybody trained up. You had your community, you had everybody working on all cylinders. They saw things like stops go down, they saw crime go down, and they were able to do that across the entire city. Okay. So those transformation zones are us kind of getting everybody on the same page, but hopefully we'll be able to do that as much as we can in other areas as well.
So that's why I'm wondering if an area like this, if they should fall under, if I should be contacting, or should, as council people, should we be contacting the crime prevention when someone has that kind of question where it's been slow, nothing's been happening there, but now it's an uptick? Is that does that fall under Service 618?
What is
Crime.
Service 18?
Crime prevention.
Oh, gotcha. So I would say that I would say yes. I think that you should make us aware of that. And if it's not in a transformation zone, then that's certainly something that your commander and the other officers in that district should be paying attention to and working with the community to actually address those issues.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilman Stokes.
I just have a question for the transformation team. I know crime crew, it is trash. Are you working closely with sanitation? And I would like to work closely with your group because I am now trying to put a crime summit together. And what I'm doing from Major Worley is getting all the crime statistics from all the community associations in the 12th district, and then do the crime summit in terms of mental health and GED. So we are waiting on the numbers. So I would be glad to work closely with you so we can do this crime summit together, because we already know we can arrest our way out of.
Absolutely, Councilman. I'll give you a perfect example of one of the things that I think, has come out of the transformation zone meetings, to your point. So one of the things, and we can invite you to one of the meetings so you can kind of see the things that we talk about, but we say here's a certain area, and the neighborhood coordinating officers and or liaisons from various agencies have done walkthroughs. And there's trash here, there's dumping here, there's boards that have been pulled off of, houses here. There's all these things, there's congregations there's all these different things going on. So what can each one of us, there's issues that we know with drug overdoses, that we know that there's issues with mental health. What can everybody in this room do in order to deal with those issues? And one of the things that came out not too long ago is, because everybody's resources are stretched, is if DPW, you don't have enough folks to help clean this particular area. Why isn't this a way that we galvanize the community around that? And how can we all work together? Can we train people to remove graffiti and board up, homes, so that we're giving people jobs? So those are the types of conversations. Last week, the specific meeting was on youth. So how are we ensuring that youth have things to do, but how are we also then targeting the youth with programming, wraparound services that we know are the youth that are causing a lot of the crime problems? So those are the type of conversations that we're having in the transformation zone meetings.
Well, I look forward to working with transformation with this crime summit also.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to take our last question so we can wrap up. Councilman Henry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. I'm sorry if I missed this earlier in the presentation. I wanted to check in on the scalability of City Watch in terms of if we have more customers and more partners who want to expand that program by paying for the cameras and the fiber installation, do we have the capacity to monitor more cameras?
Sir, good morning.
Morning.
And Councilman Henry, you're well aware of the Alameda, the shopping center. Thank you. You were a champion of that. There's now 9 cameras at the Alameda Shopping Center off of Alameda and Walthers Avenue.
But I know that was a concern at that point, like a year or so ago. That's why I just wanted to check in now and see how was that resolved for the Alameda, or was that resolved big picture?
So each program, actually, as City Watch evolves, we identify as a bigger picture, what City Watch can do for public safety and services. So we're looking, it's really the technical aspect and the fiber backbone. What fiber is available, the President pointed out earlier, of the different silos in the different agencies and making sure everyone's sharing the same fiber, because that's the biggest hindrance. The public-private partnerships, we have been able to expand with City Watch. Their federal funding was cut by 60%. We've doubled in size during that period because of the public-private partnerships, where many of the council members have chaired, of working with our principal stakeholders. We've also, half of the cameras so far have been upgraded because of end of service for their lifespan. At that same time, because of the funding. Now, the principal partners, and this has been, just to get to the point what you were asking, they are not only paying for the cameras, they're paying for 5 years maintenance up front to the city. So we have identified that. City Solicitor Mark Dwyer has done a phenomenal job of not just an MOU, but making sure we have all of those legal put in place. So For our stake, basically, it's really the technology of the fiber. Everybody has a different fiber, their backhaul, how they're connected to their agency. We need to share that. We need to know when that's open. That's the biggest challenge for City Watch. For the principal partners, we have several principal partners in this city that want to connect. It's just having the resources to do so in a timely manner when they're working with their project. Biggest one would be Under Armour and Port Covington, as well as all of our hospitals. Just so everybody's aware, most of you have had the presentation for City Watch. Our catastrophic relief sites, both of our stadiums and our convention centers connected. We're working on the fiber backbone for the hospitals, but John Hopkins and Good Samaritan's already connected. All of our benefit districts, including the new one for South Baltimore, are already connected into City Watch. And the public, for the presidential directive for schools, when the fiber is completed, because there'll be shelter in place, they'll also be connected to City Watch. I gave you a broad scope there. Did I answer your question?
And that's a good start at it. It makes me realize that I probably should also ask the question, not of City Watch, of who is actually responsible for expanding our fiber backbone? Like where does the push to grow our fiber backbone live? Does it live in DOT? Does it live in MOIT? Does it live in some task force? Who is responsible for growing our fiber backbone?
So, sir, my experience for City Watch, because we communicate with all of our partners, it's actually all of them are doing it. It's not an overall in that coordination.
If that's a scary answer.
I understand that, but
because when everybody is responsible, nobody is.
That's correct.
Okay, I see you. Please jump in.
Actually, to address your point, it will be MOIT, because that's the next
okay.
That's the next area that we're restructuring.
Because I mean, like as you know, it's easy for us to individually be champions of the things that come out of a better fiber backbone in individual districts, because that's how the city council is designed. And it's easy for us to speak in big glowing phrases about wouldn't it be great if it were a better connected city and all that, but somebody in the administration has to be the one going, no, we need that couple of $1 million for this. Somebody inside has to be that. So that's MOIT? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I don't believe there's any more questions, so thank you all very much. I do have one comment, and Kim, if we can talk after offline. Mr. Klein, I'm not going to rip the Band-Aid off of what happened last night, but I'm going to be very direct with you. I'm extremely disappointed that the level of disrespect that this council gets and this committee gets from your office, and the fact that we reached out to you months ago and pleaded with you to help us identify areas for cuts to help fund the council's priorities. And I'm hearing today for the first time that there's a pot of money that can be encumbered from fiscal 2017. We're reconvening at 12:30. I want to answer to my question at 12:30 p.m. sharp. We'll be back here for the Youth Services panel, Health Department, Family League, Rec and Parks, Mayor's Office of Human Services, Mayor's Office of Employment Development, Enoch Free Pratt Library, and Baltimore City Public Schools from 12:30 to 3:30. Thank you. We're now in recess.
Hey, Kim.
Baltimore City Council Budget and Appropriations Committee, we're back in session for the 12:30 session. I apologize, we're running about 8 minutes late. This session is going to go from 12:30 through 3:30. This is youth services. We have the health department, family league, recreation and parks, mayor's office of human services, mayor's office of employment development, Enoch Pratt Free Library, and Baltimore City Public Schools. I'm joined to my left by Councilman Brandon Scott from the 2nd District, and staff to the committee, Marguerite Curran. I assume we will be joined by Kara Kunst, Legislative Director for Council President Young, as well as Karen Stokes and/or Karan Banks representing Mayor Pugh. Do we have each of those 7 entities? If you could just raise your hand. Health Department, Family League, yep, check. Rec and Parks, MOHS is here, MOAD's here. Library, thank you. And City Schools, thank you. Okay, we're going to get started in a minute. I'm going to ask for each of the 7 agencies to do a brief presentation, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 minutes. I will let I'll let you know if you're going too long. When you're testifying, please make sure that you speak into the microphone. If I politely or impolitely interrupt you, it's because you're not speaking into the microphone. The reason that I ask that is because these hearings are being streamed live on Charm TV and on Channel 25. Let me say before we get started, and I'm going to turn it over to my colleague if he has any comments before we get started, that the cuts to youth programming, to after-school and community school programming are very disturbing. It is one of this council's top priorities in the negotiation process with the mayor and her administration. We hope to have those cuts restored. We are doing everything that we can to work in good faith to get those cuts restored, but make no mistake about it, these cuts are very, very disturbing and should not have occurred in the first place. Councilman Scott?
Well said, Mr. Chair. I will reserve my comments for my questions.
Thank you. Health Department, you're up first. If you don't have something to put up on the PowerPoint, that's fine. Please say your full name and your position title. And if you have any other staff here, if you could please acknowledge them with name and title.
Yep. Olivia Farrow, Deputy Commissioner for Youth Wellness and Community Health at the City Health Department. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Councilman Scott. I'm here today with our Assistant Commissioner for School Health, Francine Childs, our Assistant Commissioner for Maternal and Child Health, Rebecca Deneen, and our Assistant Commissioner for Chronic Disease Prevention and Youth Violence Prevention, Greg Cilio. You know, we were here earlier today and we've talked a lot about what we're doing around youth, including our hearing on Friday. I think today what the staff, the finance staff put together for you is in regard to our maternal and child health program. That program operates to really work on improving birth outcomes overall for children in the city. It involves everything from immunizations to nurse home visiting, adolescent and reproductive health services. That is a key program for us that is under the Be More for Healthy Babies initiative. Let me see. Let's see. Okay, that's our descriptor right there, Thriving Youth and Families. And as I said, we have our team here who can answer specific questions around that work. Hi, Councilman Henry. We also, for this hearing, we have school health services. We provide nursing and paraprofessional help to the 180 schools in the city, providing services in our school health suites and also school-based health centers. And I think our youth violence prevention program, which we've been talking about a lot lately, really focuses on preventing youth violence with one of our key programs, Safe Streets. And then also in that program, we have a teen dating violence prevention program that works out of the schools called Dating Matters. So really we're here, Mr. Chair, to really answer any specific questions in regard to our health services around youth, and we're happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. Family League.
Good afternoon. I'm Councilman Costello and fellow members. I'm here today with Laura Lotta, our Director of Early Childhood, Shamoya Gardner and Matt Quinlan from our policy team, Amy Bernstein, our Director of External Relations, and Jonathan Carter, our Director of Strategy. As Baltimore's local management board, we are proud to partner with stakeholders and government entities to identify priorities and target resources for children and families. We bring this focus of diverse partners to the table to make strategic, coordinated investments that make real differences in the lives of children and youth. We do this first by leveraging city funds we receive to attract federal, state, and private dollars. This fiscal year, over 35 funders fund to strengthen our investments in community priorities, including community schools, out-of-school time, and home visiting. In fact, for every dollar Family League receives from the city, community schools, and OST, Family League and our community partners on the ground raise, on average, an additional $3 that's being invested. Second, by building the organizational capacity and leadership of community-based organizations that we fund, we strengthen the long-term effectiveness of these groups and increase the quality of services provided to young people. And third, we measure the impact of our investments in ways that tell you not just how much we've done, but how well, and is anyone better off. There are numerous stories I can tell you about how high priority areas are being impacted. At Calvin Rodwell, as an example, one parent who is experiencing homelessness was immediately connected to a partner funded by Family League called Presley Ridge with DSS resources. They received wraparound 90 days of intensive support, and on the first day received housing, and today they're in stable housing. That's an example of the power of a community school partnership. After school, we're touching many kids throughout the city. One example is Play with Purpose, or POP, which is an after-school partner at 4 community schools. POP helps student athletes succeed in the classroom, and they're determined to leave no child behind. Case in point that this year there was an 8th grader who was falling below on her GPA and was not eligible to play sports. As a result, staff teamed up with her family to provide the academic support, and today she'll be transitioning to high school as a scholar athlete. And then finally, we partner with the Health Department and Healthcare Access Maryland as an implementing partner for Be More for Healthy Babies, where we streamline and manage the flow of funds from 5 funding sources, including the city, for home visiting. The level of support sustained helps make it possible for mothers and who are pregnant to receive services. An example is a support worker working for Drew Mundaman on the west side who helped a mother in her second pregnancy get access to an apartment, a car, and a steady job. They didn't start there. They also connected their older child to Head Start programs and set him on a path to elementary school. This high level of collaboration, not just from the partner being funded with city dollars, but through the other city agencies, makes this a real impact. This, in conjunction with community schools and out-of-school time, is the partnership that creates a pipeline for school readiness and builds healthy families.
Jonathan, hang on one second. I'm joined by a member of the committee, Councilwoman Shannon Sneed from the 13th District, member of the committee, Councilman Bill Henry from the 4th District, Councilman Ryan Dorsey from the 3rd, and Councilman Chris Burnett from the 8th. Jonathan, I'm going to go a bit out of order and veer away from the format that I discussed because I know our budget director, Mr. Klein, has to leave for a meeting in a little bit. I want you to take a minute to talk about community schools. Promise Heights is in my district. I know we all have community schools in our districts. I'm very familiar with what they do. But can you take a couple minutes, and I know you've got an encyclopedia of these examples of the impact that this has had on people's lives, to help educate our budget director so that he fully understands the impact of these cuts to community schools?
So at the core, the premise of a community school is to put the weight of the community behind the school. In Baltimore, the school is often the last sort of institution that's specific to that community. And what Family League facilitates, which is part of a national model, is where we partner and we fund a lead agency, and that can range from a small organization up to anchor institutions. Usually the organization is picked through an RFP process, and we determine with community input who the best partner would be there. But what they do is they employ a full-time coordinator to partner with school leadership and the teachers to make sure the conditions for education can happen in that school. So making sure that the students have the whole gamut of resources so that way the teachers and the principal can focus on building academics. That ranges from every community school having access to a food pantry, to every community school having access to family stability services, to unique on the southeast side, those community schools focusing on English language learning classes for the adults so that they can, for immigrant populations, so they can be focused and engaged in their child's educational opportunities and don't necessarily have to have the child translate for them when they're communicating with the teachers and principals. It can range to clinical social work services that are done in Promise Heights on the west side, and so it really varies. But at the core, it's how do we bring partners, and most of those partners are coming with their own resources to the table to help meet the needs, the unique and hyper-local needs that are happening in each of those schools.
So you're telling me that in several of these neighborhoods, that school is the last institution left. That is the last hope for kids in those neighborhoods to have these services.
That's specific to that neighborhood. That's specific to whether it's Highlandtown or whether it's Waverly Elementary, whether it's Samuel Corge Taylor on the west side. Yes, oftentimes that's the one institution that the community sees as a safe place, as a place where they can get access to resources, where they feel that the people in the Burke research shows us that there's someone there that cares about them and is going to connect them in real time to the services and opportunities they need.
We've been joined by Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark from the 14th District and Karan Banks representing Mayor Pugh. So talk to me a little bit about the food pantries. Tell me a little bit about the families that those are serving. What type of median household incomes are we talking about?
So food pantries are serving families that are both below the poverty line, but many families that are above the poverty line but are what we would classify the working poor. So are living paycheck to paycheck, and oftentimes they're in jobs that their pay fluctuates. This past year, Family League partnered with the governor to help Maryland Food Bank get an additional $250,000 to make sure the pantries were sustainable. So we partnered to make sure that with the governor to make sure that partner was not going to have to cut back on the number of pantries that are available.
And what type of, when you talk about the external partners that are coming to the table and bringing their own dollars, what type of investment is, if this was not cut from the city budget, is this leveraging? What type of external investment outside of city budget are we?
So, like I stated earlier, it's averaging a little over $3 of additional investment for every dollar that's being put in there. On a case in point, the grant from Family League for a community school coordinator is roughly $55,000. City Schools, or the lead agency, matches that with a $20,000 match. And then that full-time person is coordinating a whole host of opportunities that are coming into that school. Many of those partners are either have federal or state dollars to provide those services. They're privately funded, but are looking for schools to deliver those services in. And the coordinator is what allows to make sure that the right partner is connecting with the right families and right kids to make sure we're actually meeting kids' needs.
Colleagues, is there anyone who has any questions for Jonathan? Anything in the community school portfolio that you think is important for Mr. Klein to hear before he leaves his meeting?
Mr. Chair, I think you covered all the basics and the necessity.
Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Rec and Parks?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the council. I'm Bill Vondrasek, Acting Director of Recreation and Parks, and I just want to have my team come up and talk through each of their services, give a 1-minute overview so we stick to the 5 minutes that the chair allotted us. I do want to mention that we have some other members of our team here. Ken King, our Chief Fiscal Officer, Teresa Mealy, Head of Human Resources, Sierra Harris from the Director's Office. I am going to mention 3 things that I know my colleagues are also going to mention. Rashawn Brave's going to talk about how he's taken a vacant wing in the Upton Boxing Center, and he's going to open a wrestling and mixed martial arts studio in September in the Penn North community. I know that Tracy's going to talk about how she's expanded programming to Saturdays at a quarter of our recreation centers with no increase in cost to the general fund. She's done that by shifting staff. Daryl will probably talk about his pipeline to lifeguards, where he's taking kids in the high schools and he's teaching them how to swim and giving them jobs as lifeguards. He might not mention, but I will mention that he's had no serious incidents at the Baltimore City's pools in the last 13 years, and I think we have the best safety record in the state. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Wall, our Chief of Recreation, to introduce his staff.
Good afternoon, everyone. What a glorious day in Baltimore. Orioles are on a 2-game winning streak. We got the Yankees and the Red Sox in our back pocket, at least for now. Just briefly, before I get into introducing my chiefs of my divisions, this is going to be a very busy weekend for Rec and Parks. We are collaborating with at Radke Park tomorrow at 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock with the Baltimore Orioles, Smithfield Meats, Coca-Cola, Gardenville Little League, and Morgan State University to do a softball and baseball clinic at Radke Park. In Patterson Park, we'll do our annual fishing event from 10 to 1, collaborating with Tockerman's Tackle Shop, Maryland DNR, the Friends of Patterson Park. And, of course, the pools will be open it's going to be a glorious weekend, it sounds like. The pools will be open. And Tracy has her extended hours. And then in the evening tomorrow at 4 p.m., our partnership, public partnership with the Roland Park Baseball League, will be opening a new baseball diamond at Northwest Park at 4 p.m. There'll be a little ceremony. And then we'll finalize everything on Sunday at Mustang Bowling Alley from 6 to 9 with our partner, Manny Machado, fundraiser for our Play Baseball program. So I will invite, ladies first, I'll invite Tracy Eastep up as our Division Chief of Recreation Operations.
May I just look at your schedule for a minute? Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So for the 2016-2017 school year, the Recreation Division has exceeded the target for after-school programming. We have over 2,600 youth registered in our after-school programs. The centers have extended hours for programming on Friday night and Saturday night. We have 8 centers that we're extending the programs through summer, from Memorial Day through Labor Day. There are 8 recreation centers that we have extended hours Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Saturday 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. to accommodate programs for seniors, young adults, as well as sports, athletic leagues, and anyone that wants to do community recreation, in addition to collaborating with community organizations, city agencies, and other nonprofits. We have exceeded the capacity for summer camp registration at the academic enrichment camps. However, we still have a few hundred slots available for our specialty camp programs. We have exceeded 3,000 summer registration for academic enrichment summer camps. Our 2 recreation mobile fun wagons are available for community organizations and city agencies, and we primarily program those in communities that do not have access to immediate recreation centers, or, for example, with BPD when they do their Tuesday and Thursday travel district for whatever they're doing in the community, either in West Baltimore or in East Baltimore. And we also have satellite centers where we're working with community leaders as well as community rec councils to provide programs in rec centers that were traditionally under the leadership of city schools, but we are working to improve the relationship with the community. So through the rec council and our part-time rec staff, we are doing programs in the evening. Okay, that's it.
I'd like to introduce Rashawn Brave, our Chief of Special Facilities and Youth and Adult Sports.
Hello, Council.
Afternoon.
I'd like to talk about youth and adult sports. Youth and adult sports concentration is in competitive programming. We also run 9 special facilities, sports facilities throughout the city, and our concentration is providing sports programming to the citizens of Baltimore. One of our jewels and a new programs we're about to develop, as Director Vonderseck talked about, is Upton Boxing is expanding their program to feature wrestling and martial arts. One of our crown jewels, Javante Tank Davis, who is a member of Upton Boxing, just became a world champion and defended his world championship in the last 2 weeks. And we're very excited about that, and we're looking forward to what Upton has in the future.
And last but not least, the strength of our division chiefs and senior member, Mr. Darrell Sutton from Aquatics.
Thank you and good afternoon, y'all. I have staff with me, aquatic staff. Can you stand, Elena? Elena Criz is the northern coordinator for aquatics, and I have Ms. Patrice
Mr. Sutton, you have to make sure you're talking into the mic.
And I also have Ms. Patrice Jackson, who is our office support in the office there with us today. All right, we take great pride in aquatics and saying that we understand that no 2 communities in Baltimore City are the same. So as a result, we go out to each community and we talk to the community about the programming they'd like to see at their swimming pools. And that's why we're successful. In addition to that, we've partnered with 6 high schools in Baltimore City where we go to those schools during the day. We go to those schools during the day because we understand that during the day for us at our indoor facilities is a slow time. So as opposed to having staff sit around and do nothing, we import the staff to the schools. As a result, we've trained approximately 100 lifeguards from Baltimore City Public Schools, and those individuals will now work for Recreation and Parks, and our hopes that one day they'll become gainfully employed as well as be able to sustain a healthy way of living. Yesterday, we encountered a few of our students who were they worked for the fire department. They were once lifeguards as young people. We noticed that lifeguarding takes people to different career paths, but it starts with that foundation, and we know that Baltimore City Aquatics, we're doing that foundation. We're also proud, he mentioned our safety record. Again, training, and more training. We also offer CPR, first aid, AED to regular citizens, not just the people who work for Baltimore City. So once a month, all the classes are offered to any citizen in Baltimore City. So we're looking forward to this season. As you guys know, we have 3 swimming pools that open Memorial Day weekend. Our attendance was about 600. It wasn't really warm, but people will swim. So we do anticipate a good crowd this weekend. Right now, the plan is to open the remaining pools when the kids get out of school, and we are on target to do so. So that's what we have.
Is Clifton Park?
Councilwoman Clark, microphone.
Is Clifton Pool open?
No, Clifton Park is not open. It's currently being the interior of the pool is being repainted.
Okay.
We removed the liner this year, but it will open with the rest of them on the 24th.
What? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, was that it for Rec and Parks? All right. Mayor's Office of Human Services. Well, I was just letting her do that one for that. It was a follow-up on what he just said. But I will put you.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Thanks for having me back. Yep. So that's how I was going to start out, actually. We are a conglomerate of programs that work with the most vulnerable citizens in our city, and we take that responsibility very seriously. Today, the primary focus is going to be Head Start, but I wanted to mention also in our portfolio are homeless services. Baltimore City was just awarded a membership in the 100-Day Youth Challenge to end youth homelessness, one of 5 cities in the country given that honor. Our youth demonstration model was also rated incredibly high by HUD. I think that over the coming months, the council is going to see Baltimore City leading the way in its efforts to end youth homelessness in this city, and we're going to get a chance to talk more about that, I hope, at the hearing later today. We're broken up in several hearings. I also want to mention the CAP centers, which we were here to present yesterday. But I don't want it to be left out that CAP serves well over 350 youth a year in recreation programmings. We're an active member of the summer meals program. In some cases, we're the one place in that neighborhood where young people can go to get a hot meal over the summer, and a variety of other services that we provide for families. When I first was appointed to this position, though, I went out and I visited Head Start centers. And I'd recommend that anybody looking for a pick-me-up in the way things are going today to go to visit one of the Head Start centers we have in Baltimore City. We serve 759 wonderful children, 3 and 4 years old, at 44 classrooms spread around 10 sites in Baltimore City. And when you get a chance to look in the classrooms and see them acting like kids, like little kids, having fun, learning, interacting with positive adults, it kind of reminds you what it's all about. But since we don't have a chance to brag about Head Start as much as I'd like to take just a minute of my few minutes and have Shannon Burroughs Campbell, the Executive Director of Head Start, just come up, introduce herself, and say a few quick words.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Shannon Burroughs Campbell, and I have the pleasure of running Baltimore City Head Start. What Terry just said about Head Start, we invite you at any time to come out to any of the classrooms. While as a city we have 44 classrooms, citywide, throughout our collaborative partners, we have 50 centers. So I'm sure they're spread out in your jurisdictions. Head Start is really a part of a Birth to 5 strategy that the health department so eloquently speaks about every time we hear from Rebecca and her team. We are a critical partner that helps to deliver services to children between the ages of 3 and 5. The investment the city makes in Head Start, it provides professional development for the teachers to increase the quality of the services they provide to children and families so that they can be better supported in the classroom. So we thank you for that.
Look forward to addressing your questions later. Thanks again.
Thank you. Mayor's Office of Employment Development.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Jason Perkins Cohen. I'm the director of the Mayor's Office of Employment Development. We, of course, provide employment services to youth and adults. Today, obviously, I'll just be talking about our youth services. Yesterday, we spoke about our adult services, and I will touch on a few questions that came up yesterday. But before I do want to introduce Malcolm Leggett, who is our CFO, and Ernest Dorsey, who is the director of our youth services. Okay, so I think we are one slide too far.
We're one slide off.
Should be one slide before that.
Oh.
I can start from here. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so service number 791. This came up yesterday. It's roughly $200,000 in a partnership with Baltimore City Public Schools. It's our youth academy. It's a school for young people who are overage and undercredited. It provides a really valuable educational opportunity. We serve are targeting roughly 120 young people in the coming year. In response to Councilwoman Sneed's question yesterday, which was a good one about the staffing that is funded through this service are not the instructors, but they are what we call career navigators who help young people in all kinds of ways, whether it's following up if they're absent for a day, whether it's helping to make sure that each young person has a job shadowing opportunity, or helping them enter into employment or transition to employment after they graduate. I don't have the clicker.
Yeah, the click we got.
Oh. Okay, 797 is our services for out-of-school youth. For this, it's roughly $3.6 million. This funds our youth opportunity centers, or YO centers. This provides a wide range of services for young people who are sometimes referred to as disconnected, which means they're either not in school, they're neither in school or connected to employment when they come to us. We talked about this yesterday and how it's a critical service or support system for young people who are at high risk. Yesterday, Councilman Scott, you asked, and several council members also indirectly asked about what it would take to have additional centers. And that would be just under $500,000. We could have a new center per center, serving between 100 and 150 young people. Again, youth opportunity youth. Next up is our YouthWorks program. I know the council is very aware of this. It's the city's summer jobs program. It provides the summer jobs for young people between the ages of 14 and 21. It starts 3 weeks from Monday. So we're obviously very busy in placing our young people and making sure we have good matches and good jobs for young people. They will work at least 5 weeks, at least 25 hours a week, and paid at least minimum wage. And again, that is happening very soon. And I know all of you are very engaged in that program. And last is service number 800, which is our WIOA funded program. WIOA these are federal funds. It's the nation's workforce services law, and WIOA stands for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and it's roughly $3 million. It provides a range of services to WIOA youth, and this is, the federal government splits it between adult and youth, so we follow that and actually must follow that. And it provides a range of services from education to employment to job training services. Thank you very much. I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you. We've been joined by Council President Young, Council Vice President Middleton, and Councilman Stokes. Next up, we have the Enoch Pratt Library.
Good afternoon. My name is Gordon Krabbe. I'm acting CEO of the Pratt Library. Our new CEO, Heidi Daniel, will start work in late July or early August. I'm joined here today by Ellen Reardon, our Chief of Planning Programs and Partnerships. Many of you know her. And Megan McCorkle, our Director of Communications. I just want to give a brief overview of the library. I'm going to ask Ellen to come up and talk more specifically about our services to children. Of course, the library is one of the oldest entities in the city, being formed in 1882 by Mr. Pratt, who basically gave the library to the city, but entrusted the management to the library's Board of Trustees. Our budget is, we also serve as the State Library Resource Center, the Central Library does, because it was determined early on that the Pratt Library had the best resources to provide services statewide. So we receive roughly $10 million from the state to serve in that capacity. Most of our, 60% of our funding is city funds, and the balance is state and other sources. Some of the highlights I'd like to touch on briefly are that we have received $3.7 million from the state and the city to support an expansion of hours in virtually every community in Baltimore City. This is a great opportunity to provide increased access to services, and the focus, the primary priority will be given to those communities that are in poor and underserved neighborhoods. We have reached out to the Baltimore City school system to talk to them about possible placement for some of the recent layoffs that they've had to make, so that they may be eligible for some of the positions we have, because we will be recruiting librarians, office staff, and security. So I have reached out to Dr. Santelises. The other major thing to talk about is some of you may have seen the Mobile Job Center, which we are is going around to 8 communities in Baltimore City where there is highest unemployment. And that program is now fully functional. And what we're trying to do there is to do some workforce development work to help folks get access to information that will improve their opportunities to get a job. So I will come back for any questions that we may need it later, but I'd like to ask Ellen Reardon to come up and just talk briefly about some of the services we provide to youth.
Good afternoon. I wanted to take just a minute to talk specifically about some of the things that the libraries do for children and youth in all of our communities. We have early literacy programming for birth to 5 children that begins at the very, very earliest with our Mother Goose Baby Steps program that is conducted in all of our locations for children that are birth to 3. We also have our book buggy, which is specifically focused on visiting local daycares in our community and features Olivia the Pig. Some of you may know her from Maryland Public Television. We also have launched recently this year the Books for Me program, which focuses on local daycares and provides home libraries and parenting information to children. In addition to that, we have school-age programming after school every day in our 21 locations. We have 800 public PCs that are available to students of all ages. We have our Community Youth Corps program, which deals specifically with middle school children and helps them gain positive youth development and job training while earning their community service hours. We are also always looking for author programs that happen in our communities, and we're able to bus children in from local schools. We also have 2 library card drives that are specifically focused on pivotal ages in the Baltimore school system. We have an opt-in program for children when they register for preschool so that they can opt in to get a library card at the same time. We also do a 9th grade library card drive. We continue to work with the school system and other community organizations, particularly in the summer with our summer challenge and summer learning opportunities. This year we're focusing on STEM-based learning, so that's science, technology, engineering, and math. All of our special programs in all of our 21 locations will have that focus. And we are working with Baltimore schools to get these summer trackers and summer challenges in the hands of all school students, in addition to all the programs that are funded through the Summer Learning Collaborative. We work with grade level reading specifically to provide technical support and guidance for them as well, and continually look to teen programming in all of our locations as well that focus on specific things that teens like to do. And I'm happy to answer any other questions you have.
Okay, thank you. That's it for, okay. All right, and last but certainly not least on this panel, we have Baltimore City Public Schools.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Council members. My name is Laura Jones. I'm the manager for the Office of Teaching and Learning in City Schools.
And I'm Sabrina Sutton, Interim Executive Director of the Office of Engagement.
So City Schools provides out-of-school opportunities in 2 broad categories. During the regular school year, these programs are school-based. They're determined at the school level by principal or other school leadership with advice from teachers and the school community. And those programs are funded from a variety of fund sources. They could be funded by school general fund dollars, school grants, or provided by community funds or community resources. During the summer, the district provides a broad range of summer learning opportunities for students, and then individual schools may choose to also provide their own summer learning opportunities as well, and then there's a host of summer opportunities that are provided by city agencies and other community organizations. So some examples of what out-of-school time opportunities look like during the regular school year. And these opportunities vary by school. They're tailored to meet individual school and community needs. So you can see everything from before school programming, after school programming, programming that might be provided by a vendor that provides academic or enrichment. And we also have a number of club opportunities, and then a number of schools provide access to programming on the weekends. 21 city schools have additional grant funding in the form of priority funding because they were identified as one of the schools that is in the bottom 5% academically in the state. These schools use that grant funding to increase academics during the school day, and then they also provide extended learning opportunities aligned to the academic programming to ensure that students have even more access to academic instruction, particularly for students who are low performing. This summer, City Schools is investing $6.8 million through a variety of general and grant fund sources to provide district-managed summer learning opportunities. In addition to this, we know that some of our schools are choosing to invest either their own resources or have sought out other resources to provide their own programming as well.
Hi, Mr. Chair and Council President and all members. Just going
Could you
to
state
talk a
your
little.
name for the record?
Sabrina Sutton. I am the Interim Executive Director for the Office of Engagement in City Schools, and we'll be just talking a little bit about community schools. And as you can see, Family League of Baltimore, we contract with them to support the citywide implementation of city schools and out-of-school time programs. They facilitate monthly training and networks with all of the school coordinators, on-site coaching and support for the school leaders, families and parents and partners, and you can see the plethora of supports that they give to the schools. Also want to say on the next slide that in addition to the individual supports, we contract with 29 community-based organizations who provide community school services to their schools. And you can see the funding. I want to say, though, one of the most important things about community schools is that that principal has a partner in that community school coordinator who coordinates all of the services that are in that school. And so that is a great support for the principal. You see the 46 of the community schools are implementing full service community schools, and then we have 13 that are in the planning process. We have 49 out-of-school time programs in our community school strategy. So if you have any other questions, then we'll be here to answer questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
One final thing, in addition to the programming that we've mentioned, we also provide athletic opportunities that typically take place outside of the regular school day.
Do you include aquatic activities among athletic activities?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Council President.
Thank you. This is for all of the services that service our youth. We know that we have a large youth population in the city of Baltimore, and I'd like to know what all of you collectively are going to do to increase opportunities for more youth. And anybody can answer it.
Good afternoon, Council President. For Rec and Parks, we have extended and expanded our programming for youth, specifically ages 13 to 25. We've also expanded the recreation programming hours. So for some centers, we have 8 centers that are open 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. Those centers, we have increased the hours to operate 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Friday and 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. on Saturday. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, but those hours are in addition to the already expanded hours. In the other 40 recreation centers, we have expanded the programming for youth in that age group.
And anybody else want to talk
Also,
about?
Go ahead, Darryl.
Because we have a crisis in our city with our youth, and it's a direct correlation to crime. If we can get them into positive programs, they will not have opportunity to be out there committing some of the crimes out there, getting themselves juvenile records.
Yeah, we reached out to Baltimore City Police Department, and we partnered with them, and we created what they call the BOSS program, where we bridge officers and students together for swimming. So what happens is the police officers who can't swim and the students who can't swim, they learn to swim together, and they talk about community relations, and the kids have questions, and it helps to knock down those barriers in the community. So that's working really well for us. And actually, it's working so well, we're interested this summer in taking the show on the road, expanding it to other facilities. The police are definitely interested, and we're coming up with more police than we can handle. So this summer, we're going to implement it, and it's doing great things for the kids. A lot of kids, they don't know why they don't like the police. So the police, they have an opportunity to form relationships and actually talk to them. And in addition to that, as you guys know, we have our series, we have teen nights at the swimming pools where the kids come out. And yesterday we were here in City Hall. We met a lot of partners who did a lot of advocacy for kids. So they're going to start coming to the teen nights as a way to talk to kids, meet kids where they are, help them with the challenges that they face, and anything that the kids may want to talk about. We have vendors on hand for those this year.
The library will be expanding hours, as I mentioned. Right now, 16 out of 22 locations are closed Monday or Friday, and that won't occur after we expand hours and hopefully by the time school opens. So that's going to mean an extra day of service in all of those communities. It's going to give us the opportunity to do more programming, particularly around the areas of school readiness, and also after school. Those kids are going to need a place to come. So we will be open, and that's going to have a positive impact on services.
Mr. President, this year the Community Action Partnership Centers have arranged, we're going to do 6 sessions for 100 youth each around financial literacy at Morgan State. Students are going to meet with professors, tour the campus, and go through financial literacy sessions. So that's a new addition this summer.
Mr. President, Recreation and Parks, as far as our competitive programming with our basketball leagues, we're strengthening our connection with Shoe City, and Shoe City is hosting different opportunities at our BNBL site, which celebrates 47 years of existence, and where they do giveaways and do interaction with the kids and provide services for the kids as far as Shoe City and Recreation and Parks, as well as we're expanding on our Be More Night Hoops program as well. That's going to be hosted at Cloverdale, and at the end of that program, we do a block party, and we invite the community out to that block party and provide food for the community and fun.
At Family League, we continue to look at new opportunities to partner with the private sector community as well as the public sector community. With respect to that, we are expanding in partnership with the Department of Social Services, the Ready by 21 program to offer those services on weekends and evenings that should implement in the next fiscal year, as well as partnering with expanding on the pilot that we had with MOED last year around kids connected with community schools, getting workforce development programs, and expanding the types of organizations that are being funded to fund more grassroots organizations with operating budgets under $500,000, so that way more diverse communities are receiving services.
And
Okay, you can go ahead.
thank you, Mr. President. For employment services, a couple of things. One is, and as everyone else spoke about, partnerships. We are partnering with public schools to do more intentional services particularly for young people as they graduate, and we expect to have more information for this in the coming year so that we're going into schools, particularly meeting with juniors and seniors so that they know about the employment services and they know about their options, particularly for those who are not going to college. And then the second thing, as you know, there will be mobile units in the coming year. We know that there's lots of young people out there that are not aware of the services. The library has taken a really important step. We're going to join them we expect to have 2 mobile units. And then in addition to that, we're also exploring a van in which we go out again and try and meet young people where they are and let them know about the services that are available.
Yes, Mr. President, our Play Baseball campaign, not only through Rec and Parks, but we have expanded to reach out to the Northwest community as well as the Southwest community at C.C. Jackson and Carroll Park to establish to bring baseball back to them communities with regards to some monetary help as well as equipment through the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation, some ball fields, and we've also expanded to the Southeast Little League through the schools in Councilman Cohen's district.
And with the Health Department, Mr. President, we are going to be looking at children suffering from abuse and neglect and hiring a coordinator to more closely work with children so that they can actually work toward better, healthier outcomes. We also have a grant around supporting male victims of violence, and that's going to focus primarily on trauma and mental health supports. We'll be providing school health services to all the schools open this summer, so there'll be some supports around health in that area.
Okay. If you all could send that information to the budget chair so that we can all have that information. I wanted to talk to the library because we were told that the library is working with the schools as far as librarians. Can you tell me what that looked like? Whether the librarians are going to be in the schools or who's going to pay for it and all that? Because we want to know.
Well, we are creating about 50 positions. Those folks are expected to work in our library centers because that's where we're expanding the hours. Many of the folks that will be impacted by the layoffs qualify for those positions. I reached out to Dr. Santelises just to let her know we have those positions, or we will have those positions, and for those folks to apply. Many of the media specialists that are in the schools have an MLS degree. They apply for some of the librarian positions. We have other bachelor level positions, high school equivalency positions, security positions that we certainly would like to help the school system as best we can. But those positions will be working
directly in the libraries.
In the libraries.
Okay. So that's a problem. Is there any opportunity for the school system to have librarians visit the schools during some period of time to give kids the library experience that they need?
Yeah, we do that already, Council President, and we're certainly open to expanding that the best we can. The additional staffing, I think, should make that possible.
Okay. All right, Rex and Parks. We know that our young kids play baseball in high school, they play baseball through Little League, but there's no other place for them to go because our fields are not large enough. So are we looking at expanding some of our fields to 90 feet and turf so we won't have to worry about the constant management of those fields? And I say that because we have Coppin State University that have to go to Anne Arundel County to play on their ball fields, and they've located here in Baltimore City. We also have some semi-pro teams of kids who used to play in our rec leagues that have to use Anne Arundel County fields, which means our home-based fans won't go there to follow them. And some of them have been drafted by Major League Baseball teams, and they our folk. So we need to look at doing those 90-foot fields. That's AstroTurf that takes less maintenance. And I want to know, is Recreation and Parks looking into that?
Mr. Council President, so far we haven't looked into putting synthetic turf on 90-foot baseball diamonds. This question came up either yesterday or the day before, so we had a minute to look into it. Currently, we have 22 90-foot baseball diamonds in our inventory. We do right now maintain baseball diamonds for use by the Baltimore City Public High School teams. Wherever they need a field, we'll tune it up and get it ready and keep it in shape through the season. In terms of Coppin State, it's interesting, you know, we were in negotiations with Coppin for 3 or 4 years, and Derek Ramsey when he was the AD over there, and we were ready to have them go out to Leon Day and use Leon Day, and they were going to use it part of the time. And then, it's escaping me, with the high school right next to Easterwood. Carver, thank you very much, Tracy. Carver was going to use it, so Carver and Coppin were both going to use it, and they were going to put some money into it, we were going to put some money into it, and all of a sudden, not through any fault of our own, they kind of walked away from it. So I'd love to send the message to Coppin. We'd love to have them look at Leon Day again, and we can both invest in the field and have them playing out there all the time. So,
But I'm more interested in getting a 90-foot turf field in Drew Hill Park. That's what I'm interested in.
we can look at it and put it into our CIP and discuss it as part of our CIP.
Okay, I appreciate that. And if you can get that information back to us, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have Councilman Scott next with Councilman Burnett on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to talk about Service 648 Community Recreation Centers, and this is really for the Mayor's Office and the Finance Department. If you look at the service, you can see that there's basically a $39,000 reduction in the service, and I just want to know, what planet are we living on where we're facing what's going on in the city while we're even thinking about making any reduction to community recreation centers? If anything, we should be making an increase, and we know we have done that over the past few years, but especially when you're talking about such a small amount of money, $39,000, it seems to me is that, like, is this a joke? Is this a sick joke? Is this someone playing games with us? Because it seems to me if you're going to cut it $39,000, you might as well just give them what you gave them last year, so that they will be at least whole again.
So the change table you're referring to is the general fund support for rec centers. There's table games revenue that's going towards that we're getting from the state that's being used to supplement that.
I was hoping
service.
you would bring that up, but it's the understanding that of everybody on this council that those table games were supposed to be over and above and not in lieu of service, and that's where we get what we call monopoly or funny money here in the city council, because what we should be doing with that table games money is adding into an already increasing budget for the Department of Recreation and Parks, especially community recreation centers. We heard the division chief talk about expanding hours, right? So they have to expand hours for recreation centers, keeping them open on Saturdays and like longer than the night at night. But they're going to be doing that with less money. That doesn't make any sense. We should be increasing their budget. We should not, and I think that this is something that the council, quite frankly, is tired of talking about. Every year we have to have this same discussion. Well, we have been saved from having that discussion for the past 3 years. But basically, every year we have to have this discussion of why there's a small cut to community recreation centers, and now we're hearing that for the first time that we're doing payments from the casino revenue in lieu of instead of over and above.
Council President.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about that same issue because the state delegates were very instrumental in getting that money, and it was a push that I made to several of them to take 5% of that money, 2.5 for the schools and 2.5 for recreation and parks. I want to know from finance, because I know some things were done where it's not as much as we think, because I think in Annapolis they did something to carve out a piece for minorities. Is finance aware of that? If so, tell us what that figure will be for the schools and for recs and parks. Because I was going to ask that question, but I want to thank Councilman Scott for bringing it up.
Yeah, you're correct. There's a carve out before the city gets its money that the state keeps for that purpose. But
So how much do we actually get?
We're getting in fiscal 18. We're getting 7.2 million of table games. It's
split between the school
half and
system.
half between school construction and recreation.
So it still would be the 3.6.
3.6 million, and that's split between community rec centers, aquatics, and then there's money in the capital budget as well for recreation and parks.
Okay, because most of that money was for recs and parks for programming and for rec centers. Okay, thank you.
Councilman, I'll point out that if the Budget Bureau won't do the right thing, we can always ask our state delegation to have the General Assembly put a maintenance of effort requirement on that money as a matter of state law, and then there will be no option but to ensure that that revenue is on top of what we should already have been spending.
Thank you. And actually, Mr. Chair, what I would request is if the Finance Department, we can add this to our list, can provide to the city the amounts that have been given to Rec and Parks and exactly where the programming funding went since they started to receive this money?
What number is that one? 77.
Think we're going to break 100 by 9 o'clock tonight?
Possibly. My next question is also related to that, but this is a question really for the agency heads. We know that where we stand right now in the city of Baltimore, we're at a place where we have levels of violence that's unacceptable. And we know that for far too long, we've been thinking about violence in the city as strictly a police issue with the police leading the charge. I have been asking every agency head during this budget process because I personally believe, and I know that many of my colleagues share the same sentiment, that it's time that we stop looking at it that way and that we look at it from a complete lens, and that we start to have someone other than the police commissioner be the lead agency for public safety, and that the city develops a comprehensive gun violence reduction strategy. Just want to hear from the heads of the organizations about what they think about that and how they would like to participate in something like that, because we can talk about coordinating amongst agencies. We heard, unfortunately, in the previous session that coordination in the public safety strategy isn't happening right now, and I don't know how acceptable that is with a city that has 146 homicides, and that we're going to have to wait until some miracle MOCJ directive falls out of the sky to come save us all. But in the near future, we hope that we have a person like that. But can the agency here just talk about how they would like to partner around public safety from a complete and total public health perspective?
So for the Family League, I think we've been heavily involved with the health department on their youth violence prevention strategy, but more than that, we believe that investing in youth programs at the front end is a youth violence and a safety strategy for both kids and adults. So making sure that there's welcoming schools that are opened after hours in partnership with city schools, and so looking at that plus outer school time and summer learning, which are critical to make sure that kids are engaged. And so we are very much engaged in that and would look forward to playing a bigger role.
Councilman Scott, you've heard from us for this morning and then last Friday. I also wanted to add that, our Safe Streets program has leveraged other programs within our youth violence prevention portfolio. So we have a hospital responders grant that we received, looking to really do that intervention on the ground in the emergency department and connect it back to our community Safe Streets programs. So that program is under really planning and soon to be implemented, and we've been working with Sinai and also Johns Hopkins on that. It's also, Safe Streets has leveraged the Supporting Our Male Survivors grant. So there's a lot of work kind of intertwined in our Office of Youth Violence Prevention, especially around mental health, trauma, but also just being on the ground and working with folks.
Councilman Scott, at MOE, Office of Employment Development, I think, well, I won't speak for you, but certainly we think that it's a lot of it's about opportunity. And if young people are provided an opportunity, that's really what they're looking for. And if they're given an opportunity, they're more than happy to take it and run with it. And that's why we put so much effort into expanding Youth Works as much as we can. As we talked about yesterday, the research is really clear on summer employment and decreasing crime. This year, we also made it a point of emphasis to target the transformation zones that have been identified as areas that need particular attention, and to make sure that youth who registered for Youth Works in those zones, all of them will be offered a summer job this summer. And then, it does sort of dovetail with the previous conversation about getting the word out about our services so that we can reach more people. It also connects back to making sure that we do a better job of connecting to Baltimore City Public Schools so that every young person is aware of the various services that are available.
Yeah, Councilman Scott, members of the committee, I do think it's about having repeated and periodic interaction with the other agencies. And so I do credit this mayor with setting up the transformation zones as this scheme that brings us together with the police department and the mayor's office of employment development and the other city agencies so that we can start talking to each other, and we're forced to talk to each other every couple of weeks. I do think also what's good about that practice is, I mean, they started with the agency heads and said, hey, this is what we're going to do, and then they let it come down to the actual implementers level, you know, and let majors talk to division chiefs and hear what's actually happening on the front line. So I do think that that repeated discussion, repeated collaboration is better than it used to be, and that's a step in the right direction. I do think that the blessing that the mayor's office has given us to, you know, extend hours, you know, regardless of the financing, that we'll figure out how to pay for it, that's also a good step in the right direction. So,
Councilman? Sorry, I just want to add real quick. You know, this is a critical issue for me, and I think one of the focuses of Human Services this year is figuring out not just to be so stuck within our lanes of the funding we have to provide supports to the other agencies that are working in these areas. So ending unstable housing for opportunity-aged youth is a huge place to start. We're also bringing on a Baltimore Corps Fellow this year to focus on job connections for unaccompanied youth, working with other agencies like MOED. And then this isn't going to show up on our slides, but an important element we're working on now is working with the police department and other agencies to look at youth in the transformation zones that have been specifically identified, and working with Family League to find openings in summer programs and personally refer them to those programs to make sure they have something this summer.
Thank you. All right, Councilman Burnett is next, and Councilman Schleifer, you're on deck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a lot of the questions I did have written down have already been answered. But one of the things that I think has come to light is, and I'm disappointed, I don't think there's anyone here from the mayor's staff for the hearing. Okay. So I guess we can put it down as a question to, if Margaret, if you could, for the real need for a strategic plan for youth engagement. I mean, it's great that you guys have collaborated in these 4 transformation zones, and that's important. But a lot of the questions I get around the transformation zones is, how does this translate to the work being done across the city? And 2, why isn't this just how we do things in the city, where you do have interagency collaboration? It makes sense to do it in 4 places. I would argue it makes sense to do that citywide. And so if we could put that as a question for a plan, for a strategic plan, to make this the standard of how we operate, as well as a question around, I know the previous administration had a youth cabinet, and just wondering if that is still in place, and if not, is that intended to be done?
Yeah, just speaking from the health department, we are working for the past year and a half on developing a youth health and wellness strategy. So we have a youth health and wellness plan. It's on the website, and we're bringing in all different facets of agencies and partners to work with us, because in the end, really it is about, you know, when the child's 5 years old and having the supports and resources available. We're looking at healthy minds, healthy bodies, and healthy connections for children, and that's beyond just the health department work, but that's including all of the agencies, many sitting here today. So that is a plan in progress.
Thank you, and I'm glad, and again, I'm not saying that individual agencies aren't thinking this way and aren't collaborating. I believe that it should be top down. That's a part of like I said, the way that the administration operates, that the city operates. So I guess we'll add that. That's like question 80. The other one, and again, we'll just add this. I don't think you would know this, Director Von Dressig, offhand, but the cost to open pools for youth for free. Would you be able to provide that for us? If we wanted to open pools for young people in the summer at no cost to young people?
Well, I'm going to let Daryl correct me if I'm wrong, but right now they're basically free.
Okay.
I mean, it's $1 to get into our neighborhood pools. It's $2 to get into our park pools. And if somebody shows up without $1 in their pocket, he lets them in anyway. But you want to?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Although there's a cost to attend the pool, we don't turn kids away.
Okay.
Kids come, they stand outside, they give you the puppy dog eyes. You see them what you do is you talk to the kids, you find out, because the biggest challenge is they need an adult. So you find a kid around the pool, he's 12 years old, you want to let the kid in, but there's that liability issue. It's like, do I let him in? If something happened, what goes with then? So this year, we met with a lot of groups, and we have some community volunteers who say, we'll come out and we'll take responsibility for these kids whose parents won't come to the pools. So we have that in place now. So, like I said, the kids come, they don't have money, we allow those kids in. You know, the community groups come, they have large numbers, and everybody's a partner when it comes to getting a discount. We work it out. If we don't turn groups away, we don't turn kids away. It's our focus. We'd like to get the kids engaged in something constructive. We like to teach them to swim as opposed to come and just splash around. So we always push for that, the structured portion. But as the director said, we don't turn kids away.
Okay, I think it'd just still be helpful if we just if
We
just
can
to
come
kind
up
of
with
get
a
an idea
cost.
if that was just the
Collaboratively
policy.
with Mr.
Yeah, no,
Kincaid,
and I'm glad to
we
hear
can
that that's not
definitely
happening. I just think it would be helpful for us to just know what the cost would be if that was just how we did things.
That's
again.
something we can put together, right, Ken?
Okay. Thank you. And the last, or second to last, question I had was...
If we could hold it to 2 till we get through the first round of, I still got half a dozen other people have questions.
Okay. All right. I'll just talk to you offline about library hours because I got to run to a meeting. The last thing I'll just say is, one, just thank you to all of you who do work with our young people. It's critically important, the work that you do. And I know every year it seems like you're in the firing lines of the budget fight. But again, thank you for the work. It's really important. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you. Okay, Councilman Schleifer is next, and I'm going to yield my time to Councilman Cohen. Is he still here? See? All right, well then, Councilwoman Sneed, you're on deck.
All right, so just keeping on the theme of communication and just finding out about all these wonderful programs that exist and engaging our kids, I guess this question, I'll start with Rec and Parks. Who's in charge of communicating these programs and events, both to the council as well as the community?
Well, I would say all the division chiefs send it to our Office of Media Relations, and our Office of Media Relations pushes it out, either puts it on our website or communicates to the council, calendar of events.
Okay, so, I mean, obviously then information's not getting to the people who need it because myself and probably everybody else out there is not going to your website to look for this information. But, you know, I think it's important that if we're going to have events in the community, we have all these great programs that are funding, and especially your agency that's getting an additional $3+ million this year when many other agencies and other programs are being cut. Obviously, you guys are serving a valuable role to our youth, and I would just find that, you know, as a council, we're sort of that, you know, that middleman between us and the community. We can help, you know, put this information out there, and without us knowing about what you guys are doing and how you're going to go about doing it and what programs you're having, there's really no way we can share that information. And just a prime example of that would be what the gentleman had started with about the Roland Park baseball field. So you said that's opening tomorrow? Right. Yeah. Okay. You want to fill me in a little bit on that? I mean, because it's in my district and it's the first time I'm hearing anything about that.
Sure, and I'll just preface what Bob says. The Roland Park Little League raised some money. I think it's about $150,000. Came to the city, said we want to renovate the baseball field up at Northwest Park. The city put in, I think, $90,000 of Pimlico impact funds. It was a partnership. Roland Park Baseball did some of the work. We did some of the work. They were the primary lead on the project, and we basically got a call a couple of days ago and said, hey, by the way, we're going to kind of do a ribbon cutting on Saturday. So it was news to us. It took us by surprise as well.
Right, so, you know, especially since my staff had emailed your staff last week inquiring specifically about this baseball field, you know, not hearing back about that and other things such as, you know, with the trail that's been in the works for many years, and then just to get calls from constituents saying that there's, you know, equipment and other machinery getting started, some of it on private property, some of it just coming through the neighborhood without them knowing about it. I just think that communication needs to definitely needs to be increased. So I'm just curious, you know, as well as your office is concerned, you mentioned a lot of it happens at the higher level. So in the budget, your office, actually, the director's office, has an increase of over $800,000 this year. Is any of that money going towards hiring somebody to communicate?
I'm going to let my chief fiscal officer tell you what the $800,000 is. It's not more people or more ability to communicate. What is it? It's like a budget transfer, Ken, or come up to the microphone, please, and we'll have Bob help. And while he's coming up there, I'll say, I agree. Our agency could always do a better job communicating. I think if you look at an agency with about 300 staff in it and a budget of about $40 million, we have 2 full-time people in our communications office, one who's a graphic artist, filled positions right now and a couple of vacancies, and so I agree we could always do a better job communicating both our programs and with our constituents and with our elected officials. But do you want to explain the $823,000 apparent increase in the director's office?
It's $862,000.
Yes, the $800,000 has to do with, from this year, what we had to put in our budget, potential grants. Now, these grants may or may not come. So that $800 represent potential grants that should be coming to the agency in FY18. So it's not real actual money that we can spend, but because of the new grants management process and the working with BBMR, instead of receiving grants and go through a lengthy process before you can spend the grants, BBMR has hatched the plan whereby potential grants revenue are placed in the budget so that it can be appropriated at the time when the budget is appropriated. And therefore, when we get the funding, we are free to spend the funding. Otherwise, if it was not put in the budget, then after we receive the grant, we'll have to go through a lengthy process before we can actually spend the grant. It has to be appropriated. So the appropriation is done ahead of time prior to receiving the grant.
And so, so 2 things. One, why would
That amount about $700,000 of that amount.
What's that?
That amount is about $700,000 of potential grant revenue, but it's not real revenue.
I got you. So why would that be just documented under the director's office increase?
Yes.
No, I'm saying why would it be in that and not in any programmatic?
Well, we do have some in programs, but we have a number of from the grants management team, the grant management, the grants manager is under the director's office, and she has a number of grants that she is working on. So we really didn't want to, and we really didn't want to place them on a particular program when we kind of knew that these are really tentative. So we decided to put that amount in the director's office, because if it's in the director's office, then it is more likely, if we get the grant, then we can assign it to where it has to go. But we didn't, and because of this particular question that you are asking, why we did not attach it into any particular type of service, because it would give the opinion that the service has received increase. For example, if you were to put the money in rec centers and you put $700,000 in the rec centers, you would interpret it as an improvement in the funding for the recreation centers, when actually it is not. So we put it in the director's office as a strategy, so that when you ask about it, then we can say it's not attached to any particular programming.
So if you want to talk about interpretation, I mean, if anybody was looking at page, I think it was page 451, they would see that the amount of money that's in the administration budget, over $4 million for that, for that office on this 44 staff members, and averaging that out would be, including benefits, over $90,000 per person, and then they see an additional $862,000 in there that's just misclassified. That, I think, perception-wise, gives off a completely different perception as to where's that money going when there's not an increase in staffing. Is that money going towards raises? Is that money going towards something else? And so that's clearly misclassified. But on top of that, I mean, what happens when these grants don't come through?
Exactly.
So
No, exactly.
No, so what happens?
Well, that is the reason, because these are grants that we have applied for.
All right.
It's not a guarantee that we are going to get these grants. And let me ask you this then: what if we had attached that $700,000 to recreation centers or aquatics? Then you would have interpreted it as an increase in aquatics funding, when it is really not, because these are grants which we may get and we may not get.
So if you have it in that spending over there, and let's say you start spending towards this 862, or you said 700,000 of its grants, and you start spending towards that, and let's say you get 0 grants this year, then you would have overspent.
No, we wouldn't spend towards it because we know exactly what it is.
Can I just clarify?
Yes.
There's a note where there's money budgeted for unallocated grants. It's noted in the major budget items in each section, and they can't spend against the 700,000 until they receive the grant award. So it's parked there in case they get the award, to speed the process if they do actually get the award.
Right.
Okay. So when it's documented on that page, I just think there should be a note including what that is, so that we've already been struggling enough, I think, through a lot of the agencies with how money is allocated and what money actually exists versus what doesn't exist. And I just think, just trying to fool the system per se by putting money in a place that's most convenient isn't necessarily the job of government. I think we should be putting things exactly where indicated in the notes and let people determine based on the facts on how it lays out there, as opposed to us trying, this guessing game and figuring out what it should be, because based on what's most convenient for the agency, I think it's our responsibility to put the information exactly where it is, make sure it's clear to everybody what exactly is being done.
There's a note on page 440 that says the budget includes $700,000 unallocated grant for the potential of new grants.
And it
under
says that
administration.
and that's in the administration's office?
Under Service 644. Yeah, it's page 440 of the agency detail. So yeah, where we have that, we've noted it in the major budget items section to try to avoid that confusion.
And that does not, that does not indicate where it's, where it's placed. It just says, it just lays that out. So you'd have to go digging for that and then try to assume what $700,000 you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's budgeted in that service, and like Ken said, if we have a good idea that we'll get a grant in a particular service, we'll put the money in that service and indicate it. But if we're applying for other things and we're not sure what they'll be used for, our general policy has been to park it in administration, just because we're not sure where it will be spent. But we try to note that in the book and say, this is the potential for more grant money. Like Ken said, if we don't have that money in the budget and we get a surprise grant, the process to go through and spend that money is a lot longer than if we just had the unallocated in the budget. We'd have to go through a longer process. So our policy is try to speed the process if we do get a grant during the middle of the year
so
that was unexpected.
If you exceed that those grants receipts, where does that go?
If we get a grant award above what's in the budget, we have to actually come back to the council and ask for the appropriation in the middle of the year as a supplemental.
So it goes in through a different fund. It doesn't go back into administration to then be divvied
No,
out.
it would be put in the service where we're actually receiving it.
Yeah. Councilman, you good? Yeah. Okay. All right. So next up, we have Councilman Cohen, and on deck we have Councilwoman Sneed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the agencies that are here today for our young people. Baltimore is experiencing record levels of violence, as we all know, and it can be hard in this time of great anxiety for so many of our communities to see bright spots. But I would argue that one of those bright spots in our city is the community school model. Yesterday I was at Wolf Street Academy, which is a school in my district that went from being the 77th ranked school in Baltimore City to being the second best. And a little girl there told me that the community school, Wolf Street Academy, had saved her life, had provided classes in English for her parents who didn't speak English, had provided glasses for her, had provided tutoring, had provided after schools. This strategy is working. Baltimore is a national model for it. We have a conference coming up, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, in 2018. The National Community Schools Conference is being held here in Baltimore. So my question is, would this model work if we defunded it? And by that, I mean, can it work without the community school coordinators?
So I think what's pivotal in the example that you give, Councilman, is the way that those partnerships are able to happen at the school is that it's not being added to the principal, a teacher, teacher's job who already are working incredibly hard to meet students' academic and other needs. But that coordinator is then leveraging those partnerships, making sure that the right kids who need those services, that families are connected to them. Schools can manage. There are some schools in the district that are managing that. I think the research that Burke has done, the research that's done at the national level, show that the impact is greater when there's a coordinator that's dedicated to that. We've seen that here in Baltimore when there's been a vacancy in that coordinator. We've seen where partnerships have sort of not had the same impact as they had when the new person comes back on. So I would say that partnerships would still happen. It would not happen at the scale or level that it currently is occurring.
And Councilman, I just wanted to add the beauty of a coordinator is also that they do asset mapping around the community and around the school. And they find out what the parents want, what the children need, what the community needs. So sometimes you can have someone and not really sure about what's going on. And so it's important that you know what the families need, what the children need, what the communities need. And so that's why that's so important, to have that coordinator there in the building.
The other piece that I would say is that after school is an important component of the community school model, in the fact that it's one of the core areas that the school needs to ensure that has, and with the support of the council and other funders and the mayor, there is in every community school that Family League funds an after-school program component to that. We've seen, since we've aligned the strategy 4 years ago between community schools and after school, that the kids with the greatest need are actually accessing after school. So higher kids with disabilities who were disproportionately left out of after school in the past are now being included. We're seeing higher English language learners participating in that. When you look at the research from Burke, we know that after-school programs funded by Family League are serving higher English language learner. We know that we're seeing higher special education populations, and they're being fully included in those after-school programs. And the coordinator is an important part of that.
Yeah, and so to build on that, I would simply say that as a city, we need to stop doing this, which is assuming that models, innovative models that we know are working, can work if we don't fund them. This council is unanimously behind the community school model. It makes sense. You all have provided the data to support it. We know that out of school time and after school time is critically important to the health, safety, and well-being of our kids. And I would simply say, on behalf of myself as chairman of the Education and Youth Committee, if this city is serious about keeping our kids away from violence and keeping them safe, we have got to fund the things that we know work.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up, we have. Okay, we're going to skip Councilwoman Sneed for right now, and then move to Councilman Stokes. Next, with Vice President Middleton on deck.
This is for rec and parks. I know you have some rec centers that do well, have great programming, and you have some that has no programming. And I've been to some of them in my district, and some of the directors come to the community associations, and they tell them they have programming, they don't even have a brochure they give to the residents. So how you engage parents to come into the rec center when that's not happening? The other piece is, if you have rec centers that are doing well, can rec and parks go to some of these other centers and kind of train them in terms of programming? Because I look at rec councils. I grew up in a rec council, but you have some rec councils that are doing well, then you have other rec centers program, they don't have no rec council at all. And I think those rec centers that do not have parent participation or people from the community, rec and parks need to go and grab those rec councils and train some of these other rec center directors how to start their own rec council. Because I'm gonna tell you, some of them where I go at, if the basketball is gone, ain't nobody in the building. So I have a problem with that. So I think if we look at some of the rec councils throughout the city that are very successful, we need to share that with other rec directors or rec center directors so they can implement the same kind of rec council.
Thank you, Councilman Stokes. So each recreation center does have a recreation program. It's fall, winter, and spring, and then we have our summer program. Specifically in your district, the centers that are lacking the participation are the centers where we've traditionally had citizens or organizations that are telling children, if we're not running it, don't go in there. And the center that you're talking about, we both know exactly what center you're talking about, Madison Square. We have had meetings with your predecessor, Mr. Stokes, to see how that community can work together with that group so that we can form a recreation council in that in that center. However, a rec council should be comprised of several members of the community and not just one organization. So the new center director is working with that group as well as some other citizens in that neighborhood to formulate a rec council. They've submitted the documentation, but the young lady that is going to be the president of the council said she wanted to make some changes. So I'm just waiting for that information to be sent to me. As far as training, our staff has in-service training on Tuesdays and Thursdays, at least twice a month. Each staff knows how to coordinate a rec council. So, and the centers that are doing well, we know what centers are doing well. The centers that are not doing as well, we are working with them. But again, if we have challenges in a community, we can't get it off the ground. And then I'll give you an example. For example, Walter P. Carter. When we first opened in April, we had a lot of challenges. However, once the community realized if they come together and work together, opposed to trying to do things separately, each organization, we could have a good program. And we have an excellent example of community and recreation working together up at Walter P. Carter. We can have that same example down at Madison Square. However, we can't have one organization running the council.
Okay, well, I'm not particularly talking about Madison. I'm particularly talking about Oliver. I go to their meetings, and your director talk to the people in the community, say I have program and have absolutely nothing to give them, nothing. So I know you have programming it. Let me finish. I know you have programming in there, but you need to put things in people's hands so they understand what kind of program. Because people stopped me and said, "Well, ain't nothing going on in the Oliver Rec Center where you have people that don't go in there also." But he do not, and I done said this for the last 4 or 5 months, they don't have nothing to put in people's hands when they come to those community meetings. Nothing.
And
it's
you
still
and I
the same
spoke about
process.
that, and
We
I
sit
thought-
had the same conversation.
Yeah, you and I spoke about that, and I thought that issue was resolved when I gave,
not.
Joshua gave Mr. Chambers and the Community Association the brochures. If they've run out, then I'll ensure that Joshua gets some more. But they have the programs. I'll make sure I'll communicate, and for one, we're down with a staff in communication, but I'll see how we can get more programs printed up. Oliver does have the Oliver Community Association who does work with the Recreation Center, but I'll work with Joshua to make sure that he has other community programming brochures available.
Okay. I have one more question. It's in reference to Chick Webb. I was very instrumental in my colleagues on the city council to make Chick Webb a historic building. And we just started work with CHAP. We had 40 people to come out from the community to start designing how that would look from the outside. In your budget for not 17, maybe 18, will there be money in your budget to help out with Chick Webb also? And this for Mr. Vondersack, I guess.
To do what exactly?
To help out at costs, and because on the outside we know that's going to cost some money in terms of making Chick Webb historic. And I guess about a year ago you might have had money in the budget for it. I don't know, for Chick Webb. But will you be having money in the budget for Chick Webb for whatever it needs to be done in 2018?
Councilman, do you mean like a historic renovation?
No, I ain't talking about that.
Okay.
I'm just talking about money in the budget to do some other work at Chickweb, because we know that the historic piece is going to be cost money also.
I think it depends on how much these improvements end up costing. So if they elevate to the level of a capital improvement, it's something that we can put in the CIP, which would be next fall, and it would get submitted for consideration with the rest of our capital projects. If it's something smaller than that, you know, $25,000, $50,000, then it's something that we can try and run through our maintenance program. So maybe we should talk afterwards, or if Tracy is involved in these negotiations, if there's a design, we can get our capital team involved and try and put a price tag on it. And then take it from there. That'll dictate what funding stream we try and fund it through.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Next up, we have Council Vice President Middleton, and Councilman Dorsey is on deck.
Thank you, Councilman Henry. I'd first of all like to thank all of the agencies that have a youth peace program, activity. All of this is a part of the healing of the city, and you know, we have to really stay focused on our youth and young adults. That being said, I also would like to thank Recreation and Parks for working with Park Heights for having our first ever Park Heights Black Sox baseball league, not just a team, a league. And it's really a true example of a community coming together and finding their own sponsors, and then Recreation stepping in. You have the facilities there, and it's just a clear way. It's hard work. It's hard work for any community to really find volunteers to do their part, because it takes time. But that particular day was just really heartfelt, and people are still talking about that. Just one idea to kind of help keep that league going. I know that Recreation, you hire youth workers that, you know, and that age is up to, I think it's 23. They can be coaches and mentors to some of the teams that work on those fields. So, you know, it's just another wraparound service. So that's one idea to help there. And then I guess my other main opportunity is just having a little conversation about the marching bands, because I think it was the last administration where a decision was made to, you know, kind of break away the marching bands from being under Recreation, and the ones that are left are kind of, you know, out there raising their own money and just still trying to be a part of communities. Baltimore, you know, we're noted in a sense for our marching bands. They use them in community festivals. You know, they're used all throughout the city, especially during the spring and summer months. And if there is some, you know, we have some very good bands that travel around the country, and they have to raise their own money. It's really you know, it's a sport in a sense. You know, they're playing and learning instruments. It's an art, and I think someone needs to come back to the table, and the city really needs more support with them. You know, they're kind of left out on their own, but you are, you know, helping the best way you can. But I just still think more needs to be done, because they were kind of given the shaft at the time when they were abruptly separated, in a sense. I just like your comments about that.
Thank you, Councilwoman Middleton, and thank you for your kind words in reference to the Black Sox Park Heights Baseball League. It is our pleasure to assist that community and bringing baseball back to C.C. Jackson. With regards to the marching band, since our meeting 2 weeks ago up at James D. Gross, we recognize the fact that we have to take a more active role in trying to assist the marching bands that are so vital to keeping positive activity within our city, and also being ambassadors to our city as they travel out of town and perform at parades and other functions. So collectively, we are trying to get a hold of what some of our other rec centers are doing for some of the bands throughout the city. And once we get that collective, that information together, we're going to sit down and brainstorm and see where we can assist in other ways to not give them the shaft and get them going in the right direction, with Rec and Parks being side by side.
Thank you. And then just one last, question statement. We do still have a swim team. I think do we still have a professional swim team? And do they have places where I know that was a problem at one time, where to practice and
Yes,
so
we
on.
do still have a national swim team. We just came back from North Carolina over Memorial Day weekend. And you may have been hearing the buzz about the challenge of one location, which is Callow Hill, where the pool heater went up. But we do have other locations. And the rules for athletic swimming states that 77 to 82 degrees is ideal. The water was 77, and they're accustomed to it being 84. So they could still swim, but it wasn't their preference. And we also have other locations that they could use, and we offered that. And we actually got them into Carver, because one of our staff members is the AD there. So we talked to them, and BCSE swam at Carver, and then ultimately Carver heat wasn't warm enough. So we do have a challenge keeping that. And historically, we had challenges with Callow Hill. But now we're looking at purchasing a new heater, and it was under warranty, so hopefully, something will happen soon. But yes, we do have a award-winning swim team, and that they're doing great. So we do know that we have challenges, and we're working on that.
Thank you. I just think it's important. A city as large as we are, we need to have great facilities for at least the one team that we have.
In addition to that, this year Lake Clifton will be their outdoor site. So maybe about 20 years ago they had an outdoor site. So we're bringing that back in an attempt to recruit more swimmers to the swim team. So Lake Clifton will be the outdoor site, but Callow Hill will remain open all year for those guys.
Thank you. Now, you're also standing there. Our seniors program, I know that one successful program is the, the exercise when you...
Water aerobics.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Is that still...
Yes, ma'am. Well, seniors suffer the most when the pool's not warm, because a lot of seniors don't even come outside. They want 90. And unfortunately, 77, you can't even mention to them, you can still use it. So all I can do is apologize to them and offer other locations until we can get it fixed.
Okay.
So we are aware, and we are working on it diligently.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, Councilman Dorsey is next, and the chair is on deck.
Thank you. I just wanted to hear a little bit about Head Start and pre-K. When we were being briefed some months ago about the impending funding shortfall for city schools, one of the presentations that was made some very plain statements about better grade level readiness outcomes in our in-house pre-K than in Head Start. And I'm wondering about what the cost difference is. I know that the money for Head Start can only go to Head Start, but I'm wondering kind of what the cost difference is and what the service and deliverables differences and similarities are, and what can be done to get these on an even playing field or even outcome.
Sure, I appreciate the question. I'm going to ask Shannon to come up, but we're getting into some of the details. I want to make sure we explain this well. So, Shannon.
Thanks. So it's a really good question. Head Start's cost per child for the school year is about $9,100 to provide 170 days of Head Start classroom time, 6 hours per day. Head Start's mandate and what our goal is, and as far as our current grant that's been approved by the Office of Head Start, is to serve primarily 3-year-olds. And so that in this continuum, this birth to 5 continuum, we receive children when they're from early Head Start or when they're in the home visiting program with Be More for Healthy Babies. And then we serve them as 3-year-olds. We move them then to 4s at pre-K. They transition to pre-K, and then they go on to kindergarten. Burke recently did a study, and I would call you to that study on their website, that really looked at the impact of children that have no Head Start and no early Head Start, or children that have 2 years of Head Start, or children that have had 1 year of Head Start, 1 year of pre-K, and then a year of kindergarten. And they found that children that have a year of specific Head Start services, then a year of pre-kindergarten services, and then they go to kindergarten, are better off, better prepared, have better school readiness, and have better long-term attendance rates in school than children that would just have 2 years of Head Start or no exposure or just show up in pre-K. So the model is designed in such that we have Head Start, then pre-K, then kindergarten.
And are we not offering pre-K at that early level at all? I remember a very stark comparison between outcomes of kids in city pre-K versus kids in Head Start, not both together.
Yes. So that outcome that you looked at was the kindergarten readiness scores.
Yes.
And it was a very, very, very small sample of the children that we serve in Head Start, because we target 3-year-olds. We don't want to serve the 4s. We want to send the 4s to pre-K where they have better outcomes, where they have certified teachers. They have teachers that have bachelor's degree. Head Start funds only support teachers that have AA degrees. There is a definite difference there. We are preparing them for pre-K.
And Councilman, to clarify, pre-K starts at age 4. So the 3-year-old programming available in the city would be Head Start.
Yes.
And so the ones in Head Start are coming out better prepared for kindergarten?
The data point that you're referencing, there are a small, and you might have the exact number, but a small number of 4-year-olds that do attend Head Start instead of a district pre-K program. So I think that the data slide that you're referencing specifically is looking at that group of 4-year-olds that's in Head Start compared to the 4-year-olds that are in city schools pre-K. But as I said, it's a much smaller number than the number of 4-year-olds we serve in city schools pre-K.
Okay, I'll follow up with others about that. Councilwoman. No, thank you. Thanks. Councilwoman Sneed was in the queue, but she had to go and take care of baby Ray, and she wanted me to thank Enoch Pratt Library for just maintaining funding to small library branches. I know in her district, the Urban Avenue branch in Bel Air Edison, and in my district we have a Hamilton branch. Although I would love to get a water cooler in Hamilton, there's no potable water in the building, but particularly for the service to children and adults who are always seen, in the same place at the same time, all relying on the library for internet access. This is a great service to community, so thank you. And also the one on Wolf Street off of North Avenue, and he's acting like it's his district still. For the council president. The other question I wanted to ask was for city schools. I couldn't be here for the hearing yesterday. I had to leave to speak at a city schools graduation. But one thing I've been curious about is doing an additional accounting of enrollment beyond the last one that we do presently, which is in October, I understand. I think every traditional public school teacher, principal that I've spoken to has said that well after the last accounting of students is done, they still have students coming in, and they have to continue to be able to educate these students that they're not getting money for. I'm wondering what it would cost and what effort it would take to be able to add an additional accounting period after October.
Dewana Starrett, Governmental Relations Director for Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners.
Can you speak more into the mic, please?
The issue about the enrollment count is because of state law. So we get funded based on, it's a number of pupils that are present September 30th, and then I think another day in October. And so there's a one-year look back. So we're funded in FY17 for the number of students that were in the seat in September of 2016, for example. And so it's not that we could then ask for additional money that ongoing year, because it's based on the state formula. So there's always going to be this one-year look back. And so we have a lot of mobility in our system. So we have a lot of kids that move from one school to another school, in and out of the jurisdiction. And it's not just Baltimore City, but it's the entire state. So the issue is the state funding formula. That's why we have that one day.
Are you saying that the state is dispersing funds to the individual schools directly and that we're not doing that in-house?
Not individual schools, but there's a gross count based on the September 30th enrollment that schools are funded, that all school systems are funded by. And so September 30th of FY17, so September 30th, 2017, this coming year, whatever that count is, we will see that funding in the FY18 budget. There's a one-year look back. That's the only way that the state can.
So that accounts for the money that we get from the state?
Yes.
But not how we're dispersing it within our school system. And I'm asking about the disbursement of funds between to individual schools within our system, where 30 students may move out of one school into another after October, and that new school that they're at are not getting any additional funding to be able to educate those kids, and it's being retained at the first school.
We do get adjustments once that each year. So at some point.
At what point?
During the fall.
Yes, I'm asking about being able to make an adjustment after that. What would it take to be able to do that?
We do make adjustments periodically.
That's not the message that I'm getting from any principal that I speak to.
But
excuse me, we do make one.
Can you speak into the mic, please?
I'm sorry. We do make one enrollment adjustment, the one at 9:30. Remember, prior to 9:30, when they set up their preliminary budgets, it's based on the projected enrollment.
You really have to talk right into it, or
It's based on the projected enrollment. So at 9:30, which also happens to be the date of our official enrollment count, which will provide the funding for the next year, that is the date where we make the enrollment adjustment for that current year. And it's true that sometimes kids who are in the 9:30 enrollment leave and go to another place, and children come after, but we only do that one enrollment adjustment. So you're just saying, could we add another one?
Yes, because I am aware that we only do that one adjustment.
I mean, it's something certainly we could take into consideration, but remember, many times the children move from one school to another, so to give you the funding, we're going to have to take it from someone else. So
If
that
the
that will
student
have
is not
another-
in the school and the money is in the school for that student, then it doesn't need to be in that school. It needs to be in the school that that student is in.
Okay. I understand what you're saying, but also when children move, it's not like an entire class moves such that you no longer have the need for a teacher. I understand what you're saying, that it could cause a problem if a particular school were to receive an influx of students. Is that right? And what do they do then?
if I could jump in for a second, I've had this conversation with the CEO directly, and one of the issues that she said she would have her people look at is we could have periodic counts through the year, and we could just not let kids move except at certain times. And if you physically move from here to here, you got to figure out how to keep getting back to this school until the next window to move into a new school. That's an option to make sure that that the kids would match the money, but you would need to have a public conversation about that after you guys figured out if it was even physically doable.
And the challenge is you also have a delivery.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
The challenge is with the delivery of services. So if you have X number of students in one school and you purchase certain, not just textbooks, but you purchase certain intervention strategies based on that number of students, then they move. You still have that intervention strategy there, but then you have another student that goes someplace else, so then you need to find a way to purchase it at the other school. And you just can't take off that $1,000 that was related to that student that left school A to go to school B. So we have a very high mobility rate in general in Baltimore City, higher than I think in the state, about 30 to 40%. And so there's a lot of shifting around throughout the year.
So I understand that there are obviously going to be challenges associated with things like this, but to my understanding, we're not doing much in the way of a comprehensive information gathering on which we could then base decision making about how we might redistribute funding. What would it take for us to be able to gather data more comprehensively on how students move throughout the schools in the district or out of the district or into the district throughout a school year?
We can certainly take that back. As you said, you'd already had a preliminary conversation with the CEO, and we can see where the status of that conversation is and add your comments.
We're going to make that question number 80 on our list.
Okay.
And if you could, Councilman, if you could clarify exactly what information you want Marguerite to make sure is on the list to have the school system provide.
I guess the additional cost, the funding necessary to be able to conduct that kind of research, collect that kind of data.
Actually, I think the first question would be, how much mobility data do you have? And if what you have isn't sufficient to answer the councilman's questions, then what would it cost to collect the additional data?
Including being able to track individual students throughout the school year.
Okay, got it? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council President?
Thank you. I wanted to talk to the Baltimore City Public School System. We're still talking about youth stuff. And I want to know from the Baltimore City Public Schools, with the new 21st century schools, and I know they're building gyms and they're going to have arts and craft spaces and all that. What will the relationship be with recs and parks? Because I know that most of the time when the school closes, if they don't have an after-school program, those communities that don't really have a rec center there, the schools are there.
The question is for the school system, what will your relationship be with rec and parks? So somebody from the school system.
With the new 21st century schools that are coming on board, because we need those schools open up.
Dewana Surratt, Governmental Relations. I'm not sure if I can give a full answer to that. We probably will need to take that back. But I know that we have the community space up to 3,000 square feet in the new 21st century buildings, and that some also recreation centers are going to be incorporated into that space, and they're going to house some of their programming. I think the Director of Recs and Parks might have even more.
Well, I do know that that's going to happen at the school Fort Worthington, because the rec center was already there. I'm talking about the other schools where we're going to have gyms, and they're going to have all the other amenities that recreation parks can use to help our kids grow. They're the same kids. They can do arts and craft in the arts and craft room. If we have music, they can do music. If they have the gym, they can do basketball. They have the outside, they can do all kinds of things. Right. We just want to make sure, because we're one city. Sometimes I wonder if we're one city when it comes to the school system and recs and parks. I know we're not one city and everything else, but recs and parks, they are the same kids that are in the school system. And our schools should be open so that these kids could be in there and off the street. And all the agencies need to be working together to make sure these kids are in safe programs. You know, we just need to do that. All the schools belong to the city of Baltimore. When you guys are finished and you want to close the schools, you give them back to us with bond debt and everything else. They're our buildings. We want them open for the community. We got community schools. We want these buildings open. We want our kids to utilize the gyms. We want them to utilize the libraries in there. We want them to utilize everything. So I'm just letting the school system know, if you want our continued help, you're going to have to help our kids more than what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. President. And our buildings program, we will give you more information in detail. But I know that many of the buildings that are newly constructed and renovated will have it so that a lot of areas like the gymnasium will be accessible, so you don't have to go through the school, so they could potentially be open for community use.
I understand that.
Okay.
I just want the common space that could be separated open so our kids could have some activities. Because right now in the schools, we don't have music unless it's school of arts or schools in better neighborhoods. We don't have physical education. We don't have music. We don't have arts and craft. We just don't have what kids need to have to burn off that nervous energy. They can use that for drawing and arts. They can use it to express themselves in music and all these other things, instead of the little things that happens around the city and in our communities. If our kids have places where they feel valued and where they know they can learn.
I understand.
Okay, so I have been patient and held all of my questions until the end.
All 20.
And we have another 45 minutes, so that'll be just about right. That's only kind of a joke. Okay, let me start with Moed. How many youth work applicants did we get this year? Youth Works applicants did we get?
Sure. So there's two phases to being a youth work applicant. The first phase is online registration, and we had just under 14,000 complete that phase of just indicating interest, providing us with some basic information. The second phase is they have to come in for a certification appointment, and I shouldn't say come in as if they have to come to our office. We have certification sessions all around the city, and just under 11,000 young people completed the certification appointments, and that's the number of young people that are available to be placed.
Okay, and we have slots for how many of those?
So as of right now, we have slots for about 8,000 young people at this time.
Okay. When you made your initial budget request at the beginning of this fiscal year's budget process, how many Youth Works slots did you ask for?
Our target was 8,000.
Okay. I think I would like to say that I speak on behalf of all of my colleagues when I say I think we should be trying to employ every kid who makes the effort to ask us for participation in a job like that. Several of my colleagues have already spoken very eloquently about this. Some of us who have been here for a while have spoken historically about the connection between youth development and public safety. Summer traditionally being the time of year where we worry most about, I believe the term is idle hands. Idle hands are the devil's workshop or the devil's plaything. Why we would not, given the opportunity, try to make sure that every single young person in the city who actually wants, and the way you've described this process, not only got online and applied, but also went somewhere, showed up looking for the job. I asked that question that way because, and I want you to know that you just saved the Budget Bureau a little bit of heat because if we had found out that you actually had asked for more and they hadn't given it to you, then that would have made the remainder of the conversation about this budget, I suspect, even more unpleasant than it's already been. Second question, moving on to the library.
Councilman Henry, before you go there, can I just make a quick comment? I just want to be clear that our target is 8,000. As you know from the city allocation, that's nowhere. We don't get anywhere near $8,000 for 8,000 slots. So what we do is we go out and raise the money to get to 8,000, and we don't stop at 8,000. So we raise every penny that we can. Beg, I don't want to say beg,
Right.
borrow, and steal because, you know, but
So
we're out there.
private fundraising can eventually get us to a point where we may have more than 8,000 slots filled.
Absolutely. We don't stop at 8,000. I don't want to make it sound like, well, we got to 8. We
No,
don't
I
care
get you.
about
I get that. But I will push back only to say that I'm a big believer in public-private partnerships, but I'm also a big believer in what's important to you is what you spend your money on, and what's less important to you is what you go out and ask someone else to spend their money on. I believe many of us in the room may be old enough to remember the bumper sticker that wouldn't it be nice if schools and libraries had all the money they needed and the Air Force had to have a bake sale to buy a bomber? You know, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I get that, and I appreciate every bit of philanthropy that goes into giving our kids opportunities, but the budget of Baltimore City is Baltimore City government's expression of what is our priority. And if our priority is to spend our money on something else and hope that the private sector will spend some of theirs on our kids, that's a misguided priority. Second, with the libraries, I'm curious about whether you have some type of master capital schedule for ADA compliance for your individual branches. And what I'm curious about specifically is I have a branch where I am told that they are no longer able, or technically they're no longer allowed to show movies or do other group events in their basement space because there is no way, you know, to easily make the basement ADA accessible. Basically what that's done is taken what otherwise was a, you know, fairly good facility and reduced it to just the one floor of available space. And so how many branches do we have in that type of situation, and what is our long-term plan for addressing it?
Thank you, Councilman. Many of our branch stock is pretty old. We have many branches that are over 100 years old, and what we've been doing is trying to maximize the capital funding we do get to renovate branches basically one at a time. So what has happened is we've been able to touch, I'd say, more than 50% of our branches. You've seen Canton, Waverly in recent years, Reisterstown, Edmondson. We typically get about $1.5 million through the bond process. We also have the opportunity to apply for state capital funding for branches, and they will fund up to the poverty level in that jurisdiction. So you can get as much as 80% of a project funded. That's the good news. The bad news is the fund is only $5 million, and it's a statewide fund dedicated to libraries. However, we've done pretty well with that. We got funding for Canton, Waverly, Reisterstown, Edmondson over the years. So we put in the application, and we get it funded. So our strategy, we don't have a separate fund just for ADA improvements. What we tend to do is make all of the needed improvements as we get into a branch. So if you've gone to some of the recently renovated branches, you'll see we've put in lifts. Hamden is a project that's near the end of the planning stage, and we are going to probably renovate that starting in the fall. That branch will...
Falls Road?
Yeah, that's on Falls Road,
okay.
right, yeah. So that branch will get a lift. It's going to get new ramps because if you've been there, it's got imposing steps just to get up to the to the first level. And we have had to limit programming where we find out that there are individuals who will be attending that have needs. So we just can't do that. So it is a challenge, but we think we're making good progress, and we'll continue to do that.
And I want to stress that I appreciate everything that the libraries are doing for the youth, seniors, adults, and everyone in Baltimore City that wants to read or use a free computer. It was more along the lines of, is there any type of master schedule? Like, is there a list that shows, you know, this is what this is the order we're trying to fix these in, just so that we can give communities some sense of, well, probably not, you know, we're not probably going to get fixed for, you know, 3 or 4 years or 5 or 6 years unless we can come up with some type of additional fundraising. And I've had a conversation with Ms. Terranova about trying to do a separate, you know, like a capital campaign using the Friends of group.
Right.
But if we were going to do that, it would be, I suspect, easier to motivate people if we put it in the perspective of, we're trying to move us up on this list.
Yes, we do have a master plan. We participate in the CIP program every year. The next branches after Hamden are Clifton and Forest Park. Okay. So we do have a six-year plan. The fund you referenced would typically tackle projects that are less than $100,000, which is the capital amount that you would normally go for bond funding for. And it allows us to get in and replace carpeting, do some HVAC work that may need to get done. But yeah, the need is great just because of the stock of branches. We only really built one new branch in the last 25 years. So, you know, you can just understand that the need is great. And
after this is done, maybe you guys can talk to the school system about a 21st century facilities plan for libraries that they can give you some tips on going down to Annapolis and bringing busloads of people to talk about a serious plan for, you know, doing the renovations that are needed to all of our libraries.
Yeah, I have that on my list with the new CEO coming in. We did do such a study, but it's a little bit dated, and a new one's needed.
For the record, I have very good hearing in this ear, and I heard heart stopping in individual city school employees' chests when I said that. Speaking of city schools, let me talk a little bit about Baltimore City School aquatic opportunities. It was on the slide that we offer swimming. Where do we offer swimming?
I know we have swimming pools at select high schools. I don't have with me the exact list of those locations.
Does somebody have a list of where we offer swimming in the city schools?
I don't think anybody here has that, but we can provide that for you.
Do you know? Wait till you get to the microphone. Okay.
Well, when you asked for city schools, I assumed you wanted someone from city schools to.
But you know where the school pools
yes.
are?
Well, yes, I do know where the school pools are.
Where are
have
they?
A list. Give me a second. Let me grab it from my.
Okay.
The one at the School for the Arts has a floor over it now. But it was operational when I started there. I watched a guy dive into it on my first day in high school. After running down the hallways, undressing as he went.
They used to have an indoor pool in the White House also. You know what they did with it?
I hope this is a joke.
Yeah, it's where the press conferences are now. They covered it over to have a bigger space to do press conferences.
They've really gone off the deep end.
Okay, Baltimore City Public Schools have the following locations: Baltimore City College, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, Carver, Digital Harbor, Edmondson Westside High, Forest Park, Frederick Douglass, Heritage High, Mervo, Northwestern, Reginald F. Lewis, Patterson, Dunbar, Vivian T. Thomas, and Western.
Okay, so these are all high schools?
Yes, these are high schools I'm not exactly sure what they're using Vivian T. Thomas Art Medical Academy as, but I believe that's a high school as well.
Okay, okay, so thank you. I was trying to get a grasp of, so our aquatics program in city schools is all at the high school level?
That's right.
Okay, so if a middle school had a pool, that would represent a whole new thing for Baltimore City Schools, that there would be an opportunity for a middle school aquatics program.
Well, we have hopes and dreams in rec and parks, and
Oh, we have hopes and dreams
yeah,
for rec and
so,
parks.
So what we're thinking now is the schools that have block schedules. You have approximately a 90-minute period, but they have that planning period, which means that there's a vacant 90 minutes. So what we want to do is the elementary schools that are in close proximity to those high schools, then transportation would be the solution. If we can import those kids from the elementary schools.
I got two things here. First of all, I think she wants to cut you off.
No problem.
Okay. And I'm going to cut you off because I was asking that question to make a very specific point,
Okay.
which the school system is already recognized. You weren't here the other day when I started to talk with Mr. Vondrasek about the pool at Walter P. Carter.
Right.
So we have this situation where in the course of renovating or rebuilding Walter P. Carter, the school system, or more specifically, the feasibility study that the school system is running, has come up with a design which is going to involve knocking down an existing Baltimore City Recreation Center and tearing out an existing neighborhood walk-to pool, which is the only Baltimore City public pool that we've been able to identify in North Baltimore, in that the next pool to the west is Roosevelt over off of Falls, and that's the better part of 2 miles away. And to the east, you've got Lake Clifton, which is...
Coldstream's closer.
Coldstream?
Yes, it's on Fillmore. Kirk Avenue and Fillmore.
It's closer than Lake Clifton.
No, it's closer to Walter P. Carter.
Right, it's closer than Lake Clifton would be.
Yes, yes,
right,
it
okay.
is.
Well, I was looking on the map, and if it's closer than the Lake Clifton one, it's still it has to be at least 1.75 miles away, because the closest one was Roosevelt, and that was 1.7 miles away. There is not any other pool for any of the communities anywhere near there, and that to have that pool go away to save in the construction costs of the renovation of Walter P. Is an inequity that needs to be corrected. And the way it needs to be corrected is it needs to be in Rec and Parks capital budget for next year to rebuild that pool elsewhere on the site. But in order for that to be done, we need a commitment of funds. Now, some of that funding rightly should come from Baltimore City. It's our asset, we're rebuilding it, and it would mean, since it wouldn't make any sense to rebuild it as just another in-ground walk-to pool, at this point, we would rebuild it as a year-round aquatics facility, which would be an even greater asset and amenity for all of the neighborhoods in North Baltimore, and so we should do that.
I fully support that.
I thought you would.
Yes, I fully
All
support
right, I
that.
knew that we could count on Mr. Sutton for full-throated support of adding that aquatic facility.
Yes, sir.
But I want to be very clear that this needs to be a partnership between the city and city schools in getting that new aquatics facility renovated. So I'm going to let you sit down, and I'm
Okay.
going to let city schools pick who wants to stand at the podium to officially be the recipient of question number 81. Is that what we're up to? Okay.
I will take the question.
And the question will be, the question is the school system prepared to connect a commitment for funding partnership in the new aquatics facility that would be replacing the pool being eliminated by the expansion of Walter P. Carter? Is the school system willing to connect that commitment with the understanding that this is the requirement for it to be a consensus feasibility study? That if you want the community to actually agree that the best design for a new school is one that digs up their existing pool and knocks down their existing recreation center, that if the community is expected to agree that that's the best design, it would be because the school system is making a wonderful offer of shared space inside the new facility to replace the recreation center, and is working with Rec and Parks to fund the new pool elsewhere on site.
That's a long question.
It is a very long question.
I understand. I cannot give you an answer to
I
that question,
understand.
but I can
That's why
definitely
it's going
take that
on the
question
list.
back.
That's why it's going on the list for an answer to come back, with the understanding that the CEO and some board members, school board members, will be briefing the council next Tuesday morning on 21st Century facilities update.
Yes.
And that would be the next time that this would come up publicly.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll write it down. Okay. Mr. Chair, that is all the questions that we had. Oh, I'm sorry. We've been joined by Councilman Reisinger and Councilwoman Sneed. Councilman Dorsey did share your remarks. And if we have nothing else, I turn it back over.
Any other questions, colleagues? Thank you all for the tremendous impact that you have on the youth in this city. We are going to go into recess until 3:30 p.m. We'll be back here for homeless services. Mr. Hickey, I see you'll be staying.
You can just stay there if you want. Somebody can bring you a drink. Water. Sure, there's nothing.
That turf field is important, though, here. I said that turf field in Judah.